by the end of the year, I want you to build your dream board in paper mache with an exploding volcano. And if you don't do it, you get like with this situation, it was we look at this team. I don't know what that reference was. Where was that reference going? Was that making any sense?
No, not really.
What the fuck am I talking about half the time? I just caught myself like mid thought, like, who the fuck is driving this thing? Like, am I in control of the words coming out of my mouth?
I don't know. You're
What the
fuck?
But anyway,
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets, guaranteed.
Fist bumps go to the teammates.
I wanna see you falling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Parimatch, your esports teammate.
Hello and welcome to HLTV Confirmed, where we talk all things professional CSGO. First and foremost, the show is sponsored by parimatch.com, gamble responsibly, and Xtrfy. If you're looking for some peripherals, maybe go check them out. Got mice, keyboards, mouse pads, all that good stuff over there. Thank you for those two for sponsoring the show. And on tonight's show, we're guestless, which means we can take a bit more time. No hot seat. We can be a bit more conversational here this evening. So tonight is episode number 36, season 5, and we're aiming to cover off the recent news. We've got the Valve ruling to do with the VAC bans. We've got more roster moves that have been going on, EG, etc. Blast Showdown, Fallout, FunSpark ULTI, which kicked off today, and we'll be reflecting on the year of CSGO so far. And always, just for the audio-only listeners, you can find the podcast over at anchor.fm/HLTV, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, there's a bunch of extra ones over there. So let's get this one underway. Today is the 19th of April, 2021, and as usual, we got the regular panel. I guess I'm the host. My name's Chad. I have a lot of repressed anger. I said we didn't have a guest, but we do have a man named Lucas. Lucas, can you appear magically?
Oh yes, I will come in and fill out this extra spot you guys left for me.
Yeah, so we're going to be coming to Lucas throughout the show periodically for some of the best analysis that you guys want around the counte-strike landscape in this episode. So stay tuned for Lucas showing his head. So thank you, Lucas, for being here with us. Now, I want to get this one straight underway. Striker, how do you feel about UFOs? I feel I've asked you this before.
I think you asked me about aliens, yeah.
Okay.
I'm like, and I think I said something like I'm open to the idea of there being an alien somewhere.
Are you following the news?
I mean, kinda, not at this point. If there's something specific you had in mind.
All right. Well, look, we got the evidence. Lucas, bring it up right now. If you're sports mode users, you're gonna have to fucking turn this off. We've got we've got dog_player from Malta. Lucas, make sure you bring the thread up for everybody. He's made a thread. It's called UFOs. What the fuck is going on? Now, read the evidence here, Striker. So much is going on right now.
As well, because
yeah, man, I'm gonna put it in TeamSpeak for you. Don't you worry about that. Now. So much is going on right now, and the Pentagon will release a report in summer saying what they know about UFOs. We haven't had so much movement on the topic since 1947. So I'm not sure if you're too familiar with Bob Lazar, Striker, him a little bit, but there's some good information that's being laid out here. What do you make of all these new crafts that are being spotted?
I mean, I haven't actually gone through this, so I have no fucking clue what this is about.
We might have to save some homework for next week.
Maybe, yeah. But like I said, like I'm not saying that. I mean, I've always been open to the idea that there could be an alien somewhere, or aliens somewhere in the galaxy. So,
how much did X-Files influence your like openness to those ideas? That's the question.
I did watch the X-Files, but like that's such a long time ago that it's not like I had like an idea of aliens at the time, or like an opinion on whether they exist or not. So
Well, what about this? We are now aware of the 5 capabilities of these crafts. This is what Dog Player says. I don't know if you caught up to this part yet. He says in late March 2021 on Dutch News Media, former director of secret Pentagon UFO program, the AATIP, Luis Elizondo, explained the 5 known capabilities of UFOs: instantaneous acceleration. What else we got? Hypersonic velocity, low observability, transmedium travel, and anti-gravity. So, boys, I don't know. We got to
what
look
I'm
into
gonna
it.
say
Now-
as a skeptic is that the low observability is kind of it's what do you call it? It's pretty convenient, isn't it? Like there's always
That's what they
horrible
want you to
pictures
think,
of
man.
exactly. There's always horrible pictures of like UFOs, you know. So it's that seems to be like a weird coincidence.
This is perfect segue. Speaking of weird coincidences, Prof, who's more evil, the European Super League or ESL as we know it?
I mean, it's the same acronym, so it's actually the same people behind it, obviously. I mean, there is no other. How else could this function? Yeah, too many coincidences there, right?
There was a
And it's almost the same thing. They literally copy. Someone was literally like, "Look at these esports guys. This is a great model. Let's copy this shit." And they copied Pro League, and like it's the same thing. So I'm fascinated.
What we did was in esports, we tested it with 3 different models all in the same year. We did the ESL model with the Louvre agreement, we did the Flashpoint model, and we did the Blast model. And we just ran them all at the same time. And we saw, there wasn't that much pushback. So now football have decided to do the exact same thing, which I've seen a lot of ruckus about. And
But
I
I think
don't.
that the biggest issue is that we don't have the World Cup in esports, right? In CS:GO, because that's going to be the big thing in football. Like, is Messi going to be able to play for Argentina and win a World Cup or whatever? So if we bring back TWC,
WESG.
or WESG or ESWC, but I think TWC, the World Championship by E-frag, that was
Okay.
the real
Oh.
that was the real deal. We need to bring that back, and with that, we'll just annihilate all of this exclusivity things.
Yeah.
They'll just make it like you can't, if you want to play TWC, you can't be in a semi-exclusive league like ESL, and then everyone's gonna leave essentially. I don't know what else they can do, right?
Yeah. It makes sense. A lot of similarities here. We're going to have to keep our eyes on that. I don't know anything about football. So this is fun, but
I forgot you're not from Europe, actually.
no. Look, I played it as a kid. Wasn't very good at it. That's about it. But, boys, tonight we got a lot of things to talk about. We actually have a lot of recent news. So maybe we just jump in there. Lucas, roll that bumper. Let's get stuck into the recent news, shall we? All right. Well, first cab off the rank in the recent news here is going to be around EG. Always seems to be lots of news around EG. And just, I guess, quickly, a lot of the topics that we skim over here tonight, guys, that maybe we breach into talking about like exclusivity, or we're talking about maybe 6-man roster. We're going to save a lot of that, right, to really sink our teeth into with the playtime, because I want to kind of rehash what's happened so far in 2021 and some of our hot takes for the rest of the year. But anyway, let's take a look at this EG situation. Now, Lucas, let me throw the link. Just bring this up for everybody at home. So it's kind of like a multi-piece of news here, which is nice. You know, it's not super drawn out. Obviously, we heard about this MICHU situation. He's in. We weren't too sure what was going on. Apparently, it's in place of Tarik, who has written a twit longer and basically has gone on in that twit longer to say that they, where is it right here? By no means do I think I was playing well throughout the hardships, but I believe that even with our new lineup, underlying issues still existed. Ultimately, I had a different approach to our issues, and the team didn't agree with my views. All right, let's break this up into 2 parts. Striker, let's start with you. Let's start with the part to do with the Tarik departure and that sentiment right there. Is this a case of like the player just, getting to tell the narrative as he sees it? What do you think's to go here with this situation?
Yeah, I mean, there's always 2 sides to that, right? Like one side is like, I didn't really agree with their views, or we didn't really agree on each other's views, and the other side was like, well, he's our worst player. Let's just kick him, get somebody better, right? So it's how God knows. This is like a lot of PR talk that doesn't really tell me too much. Sure, there could be some like different visions of the game, and maybe like they had differences on what areas they could improve in and stuff like that. Maybe he thought he still had some sort of value that he could bring to the table, and the rest of the team probably didn't really agree with that, right? So that's kind of how I look at it.
Okay, so now we've lost Tarik. Who have we got left from that major winning team? Is it just Stewie now? He's the only one left, Prof? Skadoodle's gone.
Skadoodle is
Oh,
gone.
Rush is still here. Fuck, I'm sorry. Rush.
Yeah,
Rush is still
Automatic
there.
and Skadoodle and Tarik now potentially moving to another video game title.
But do you think Tarik can just be the next Shroud, Prof? Like, do you think that he still has that kind of fan base?
Definitely. Like for me, like I don't even know why Shroud is so popular. Let's be honest. Like he doesn't have any charisma almost at all. Like his whole thing is that he shoots well in a video game.
He's amazing at video games.
Compare that to Tarik. Tarik is like a super funny guy, and just like I see where the appeal is in that. So I think Tarik can be like super successful if he just wants to be a streamer. But I think he still has like the competitive drive, and he isn't that old either.
25.
So, yeah, he's like that's super young, at least for me. In my book, that's a young guy, and someone else is maybe not. So I think he has still maybe more to offer, but it has to be like he has to be driven to do it, right? It depends on where he is mentally, which I have no idea.
Yeah, realistically, like if we're going to look at this guy's career, he won the major as an in-game leader, right? We don't really think of Tarik as an in-game leader, but that's what was going on when they won that major. Being only 25 years of age, but the weakest or one of the weaker players of EG, you're not going to see him likely going to Liquid. Doesn't make sense. I think the only player you'd think about swapping him with would maybe be, I don't know. Would you say Grim? Would you say Stewie? Either way, it doesn't matter. I don't think that's on the table. So this Tarik situation, I would say, comes down to, does he want to try with like the members of Triumph or Bad News Bears, or does he want to try and build a team in North America with the next up and coming wave of talent? Or does he want to go home and stream and do like kind of a variety streamer thing of games like Get Right? Or does he want to go to Valorant and be another, high tier North American Counter-Strike pro, go over there, make bank, probably, it's going to happen, right? You've got Hayes and Cutler and shit over there now. Well, it only makes sense that we get Tarik over there in the next wave. You know what I mean? So
it would be pretty funny if all of those guys like JDM, Tarik, Cutler, who else was on that team? FNS was on that team.
Hayes,
Hayes,
well.
Yeah, that's legit. There, 4 of them. Is JDM in Valorant?
BTR.
JDM, I don't know what he's doing.
BTR was also in that team.
I don't remember if JDM was one of the people who actually switched. I'm not actually sure, but 3 of them are definitely in Valorant. So just make it happen.
Yeah. Well, I think that seems a bit more likely than his other options, right? Because how many North American pros can you name right now, or semi-pros, like who you could build a team with him with? Like who stands out in your mind? Like Zeppa, right? But isn't he rumored to be going to Valorant as well? We've just seen Floppies heading over that way, meant to be going over to the Cloud9 team. So in terms of like, if Tarik was going to start that adventure in North America, it would have to be something that's as grassroots, right? You'd have to start a whole project. So for him, he's probably got a lot of thinking to do, a lot of decisions to make. The easiest one, I would say, is going to Valorant, just because of his name brand, the value of player that he is, what he can bring there, and he can make a bucket load of cash. So if that's the direction he wants to go, yeah, like we've spoken about with Ethan, we get it. It's whatever. It is what it is. It's a dire situation out there. If you get dropped from EG, which now we can pivot the conversation to their current roster, is starting to look more and more international, right? So this MICHU edition, did we talk about it on last week's episode?
Yeah,
we kind of
there was a
mentioned
report.
it, I think. You asked me what my source is, and I failed to use the joke. Trust me, bro.
Yep.
That's the obvious joke, right? But yeah, it came out true.
Okay.
Obviously.
So with it being the case here, now he is replacing Tarik, who in the team had games where he would play well, and then have games where he was towards the bottom of the scoreboard. But are we expecting just more of a consistent performance out of the team now? Like, because what do we diagnose the problems as EG? Was firepower the problem? And this is for anybody. I'm not quite sure what we saw as the issues. Yeah,
I think to a degree for sure. Just because you've always had those 2 guys who were kind of like, sure, they could have good games, but most of the games were just kind of like either average or just below average, right?
Sure.
And usually you can't really be a top 5 team if you have 2 guys like that, usually, unless you're fucking Vitality and you have Zywo.
Sure. Okay. So
you're talking about like Stanislaw and Tarik, right?
What?
Like that? You're talking about Stan and Tarik as like being the weaklings, but also like even Cirque wasn't in.
He's
really
not consistent, is he?
He like for the last 6 months he hasn't been. He's been far from consistent. He has some good games, has some bad games. So that being said, I'd say like some consistency was needed, like consistent fragging power was needed on the team. I mean, stands, like initial reactions with MICHU have been like super positive. Like it didn't seem like the classic like, oh, it's a new player. It seemed like he was really impressed by what he brought. So we'll see from that perspective, from that side. There is also there is a fact that this team is actually now eligible for the international team bet. I would say they have a Bulgarian, they have a Polish guy, and they have like 3 Americans. So I think
the problem is the majority still speaks one language, and I think that's the deal breaker in terms of the rules that we put in place.
Different nationalities. I think that was the thing. So I'd say
the rules are so murky.
I'll make like a video once. I'll go over everything and explain it. Like it'll last 2 hours. So I think we'll need to like go over that. But I think it's kind of there, right? They're going through towards being an international team almost.
Okay. Yeah, well, that was the next question, right? Was there anything in the article about what they're going to do with MICHU? Are they going to bring him back over to North America when they go back for their stint? Will he just stay in Europe? Is there any point Cirque going back to North America now? Is he better off just being a European citizen again in Bulgaria? Like, what would you guys think is the outlook for this team? Because right now, these North American teams, they come over, they stay for like, I guess, a period of 1 to 3 months. At this point, being in Europe is almost where the work's done, and going home is where they take their holidays. So, Strike, I'll throw this one to you. What do you think could be the direction of this squad? Do you think they'll continue to go international from this point forward, considering the state of North America?
I mean, I guess it's possible for sure, just because of the state of CS at this point. But at the same time, like MICHU was already in Envy, and I assume eventually the plan was for that team to be based in North America as well, just because the organization they have a whole headquarters in there. In what is it, Dallas? I think it's Dallas. Somewhere.
But which org?
Envy.
Oh yeah, it is.
When he was in Envy, I'm saying that I think the eventual plan would have been that they are a North American team. So I imagine that means that MICHU is kind of open to the idea of staying in North America long term, right? So I mean, the thing is, like, there's nothing that's gonna be going on in North America for quite a long time, I think, right now. So they don't even have to operate in a way where they are based.
One important thing that's going to be happening pretty soon, though.
Huh?
The RMR events, right?
That's true.
Oh yeah, but that's kind of what I'm getting to, is that like you can still operate as a pretty much like a European team that just goes to North America every now and again, just basically either to go home for the guys that actually live there, or for the RMR events, or for whatever smaller that actually happens there that you want to take part in. So I think it doesn't really matter at this point, like what the direction of the team is. Like they're gonna stay in Europe most of the time anyway.
Yeah, it's a difficult one, because now, like with Liquid being taken up, like most of those spots seem pretty locked in Liquid, like Nafalige, Fallen. Like I think if there were big moves, like if you could get Breeze, like you could make some moves there. But at the same time, my point is, North America, it's going to be hard for the guys from Bad News Bears or Triumph, or if Zeppa wanted to stay in CS. It feels like now there's less opportunities if EG go international, right? Then we just really have even less big name orgs who are just representing North American counter-strike. And even at that point, there's always been a couple of omissions. But we've been on this one for a while. Anyone else got anything to add with the EG stuff, or we'll keep it moving?
I mean, do we think they're going to be better, right? Do you think they can now challenge for a top 10-ish spot?
I don't.
Really?
I just don't think there's enough. A top 10 spot. I don't know. I wanted to do later. I want to do a bit more of like a power rankings where everybody's at, because I want to get into a discussion about. You made a good tweet yesterday, Prof. I want to dive into that, to do with the exclusivity and what that means with the rankings. Whatever, man. It feels like yesterday to me. I went to bed at 4 a.m. I was being a degenerate last night for the first time in a while. I've lost track of time. So I want to dive into that conversation a little bit later. But with EG, with that, like looking at the top 10 right now, and this is not updated just yet for today's, but we got Gambit, Astralis, Heroic, Navi, VP, Liquid, Fury, Vitality, Spirit, Complexity. That's the top 10 right now. I don't see EG being able to compete with those guys at their best. I don't know. That's just me.
I think like somewhere on the lower end for sure. Like top 5, obviously at this point, kind of is probably going to be a bit difficult.
No way top 5, top 10 on the cusp. You know, like I think the team.
That's what I was aiming at. That's what I was aiming. Like, look at, they're now number 15. So above them is Mousesports G2, Big, which I don't know what the fuck is going on there.
Yeah, that's a mess.
NIP, I guess they are better. Then Complexity is also up and down. Maybe they can get into that area, right?
But like FaZe are blown out to 17th. Like I know we haven't seen FaZe play in a while, but
That's
like
true.
You know, like FaZe, I think at the moment underranked just because of the lack of activity and the roster changes. I think FPX, now that they actually have a fifth.
OG is also 19th, which
Yeah.
I think is going to be like a pretty decent roster, right?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of movement right there, especially like in the top 20. I think there's a lot of movement when we get a few of these teams competing again and we start to see what's going on with some of the points because things are qualifiers and this and that and the other. All right, let's go forward. Let's jump into the next little topic here. This one's not a massive one that we need to talk about, but Lucas, let me lob you the link again. Now, we obviously know the fallout from Cloud9, obviously the disaster, the Titanic shipwreck that has been, you know, anything happening around that team, I would say in the last couple of years, right? I think they've almost been cursed by that major situation. And now we know that they were no longer operating in Counter-Strike. This is a tweet I just linked to Lucas for everyone to bring up at home for our audio only listeners. Alex has tweeted saying, officially a free agent. Thanks to everyone at Cloud9 and my teammates, all of whom would make a great addition to any team. Moving forward, I'll be assessing all of my options within CS and Valorant. You can contact me via DMs or via email. Prof, this one here, what do you reckon is more likely just for gut feeling? Do you think he'll be able to find an international team considering how sparse organizations are at the moment? Or do you think Valorant is just probably going to be a little bit too enticing for Mr. Alex?
I also think like maybe the most worrying thing about it is his like, I think his stock in the market has tanked with this project.
Do you think?
Cloud9 I think it has.
Okay.
Like for like a decent degree. So that's going to be an issue on top of all of these like international projects maybe having good in-game leaders and probably his price, like his salary. Like if you look at, let's just look at FPX, they pick up Emmy and you compare that to Alex, I think Emmy is going to be like half the price, if not like quarter of the price for salary for that player. So if you're taking that into account, that is also something to think about. So, okay. And as we mentioned on the last show, like NBK is a potential in-game leader that you can pick up. MSL, if you want someone like that, is there. So it's not like there are no options at all. Flusha has his team and stuff like that.
There's no homes is probably the bigger issue, right?
Yeah. So and also he played like the qualifier like in Valorant already. So I don't like that. That's kind of a sign of where things are going.
I think the fact that he didn't join up with FPX is a big tell here. Or at least like there were no reports of them even being in talks or anything like that. Like there literally has been zero connection between Alex and FPX this entire time. And there 100% should have been, right?
But let's put it this way, right? Like within Alex's Counter-Strike career, he actually is probably like up there considering the amount of time we had him on our screens, right? Like I think people were considering Alex to be a good in-game leader for the limited amount of professional Counter-Strike he played. It's not like we saw him at the top for a very long time. Then this Cloud9 offer, we know that their figures were high, so we know he's going to be getting paid a lot of money. Now you have two options. Like this is the same with the tarik situation. Let me throw this one to you, Striker. I give you two options. You're considered a high tier in-game leader in FPS games. One option is, here, man, we'll give you a team. The team has potential, but you're going to have to work really fucking hard and grind this shit out. And your salary is probably going to be half or less than what you were just getting at Cloud9, where, you know, you just tried to build that project up and it didn't work. Or we can go to Valorant. Yeah, your salary might be half, but the game is significantly easier. You are getting offers, like we heard from MSL, for a game that maybe you haven't even touched a lot. You know, you're probably not considered to be amazing at it, and you're going to get paid a lot of money. You get to go over there and learn and do something new and get to write a new story. Which one are you taking, Striker?
I mean, I'm taking CS because I care very little for Valorant, but
you're in those shoes and you were not you.
Right. I get your point, but I think I'm not sure that Alex is in a. Maybe obviously I can't know what he's thinking, but I'm not sure if Alex is in the same place as a lot of these other players who are kind of like looking for a change as well. Just because Alex, like you were saying, like Alex hasn't been around for that long.
Yeah.
Like the first time we kind of heard of him more was like 2018, right? At the top level ish, where he was playing with LDLC before he joined Vitality, and so I feel like he's not at a point where he just like needs a completely new start, right? He can still have a lot of value in CS. It's just like this one project that really failed, and we're not even sure if that's actually in big part on his behalf, like his fault, right?
Sure. Okay. Well, look, I guess with the news overall, with this little situation of Alex now being a free agent, we would talk about homes, right? But we just said there are no homes, right? So does anybody, like, if that's why I'm leaning towards thinking this is probably more of a Valorant situation, but either way,
I think like FPX legit was the last like reasonable place for him.
And the thing is also like I hate this shit now. It's like, oh, I have to have it right now or I'm leaving. It's like sit down and like wait 3 months. We'll have 15 roster changes in the next 2 months. That's just how CS works, right?
Sure.
Mouse Sports now have Dexter, but
just look at MSL, right? Like he's waiting for his for a better opportunity than what he's been getting. And
I'm not
like,
sure that was the right
sure,
thing to do in his case, though. But I'm just saying, like, we
lots
can't,
of moving parts.
Yeah, there are lots of moving parts, and we'll see how, especially after the RMR, if things go bad, that's when you want to make a change, right?
Sure. All right, let's keep this one going. We've already had 2 topics speaking about fucking Valorant here to kick things off. Let's move away from Valorant and into is this a Chinese org? Was FPX Chinese or Korean?
Chinese.
They would have been, if it was Korean, then they could have been talked about Valorant. Anyway, it doesn't matter. That segue is gone. But this one is another one here, which is going to blow my mind. Now, before we dive into it, Lucas, I want to send you 2 links. All right. I want to send you this link. Let me send you this one. Now, we had a guy on the stream not that long ago on the podcast, and he was a member of FPX, and his name was Stiko. Now, Lucas is going to bring this up, and when it's on your screen, I'm going to read you the headline of the little article that was written after he came on our podcast. It says, and this is quoted from Stiko's mouth, by the looks of things, we're going back to Chris J if everything gets settled. Now, the sentiment the entire time for that podcast, if you guys missed it, was that the team, being the players, wanted Chris J. They were happy with Chris J. The Sunny thing at Pro League was just temporary until they could sort shit out with Chris J. Well, the headline today just reads, FPX announced Emmy signing. Now, this one here is quite the contrast, Striker, when you consider how things were looking, and now Emmy's back. So what are we taking away from this? That the deal couldn't get done? Is it as simple as that?
I would say that that's the case. Like, sure, there's stuff with Chris J's health, right? He's been out of action for a while, but apart from that, I think there's no other reason other than that the talks that didn't seem to go through in the first place probably didn't in the end.
Do you think this hurts the team, Prof, knowing that they wanted Chris J, but they have to settle with Emmy? Now they had good results with Emmy, but do you think that's gonna make things a bit harder for the squad overall? What do you think?
I mean, obviously, when it's not even the first pick, the first pick would probably be like fucking Glaive anyway. So when you look at that like that, you're always settling for something in some ways. So I think they handle that kind of okay. I think the issues are that both Zen also made some comments in a Finnish podcast about Emmy not being maybe the best thing for them when they thought they were going to get Chris J, and also like Stiko saying that they want to get Chris J, and then this is going to be like publicly a big thing when these things behind the scenes happen all the time, right?
Cool.
Cloud9 didn't get a lot of players that they wanted to get, so we didn't go in saying, oh, now they have fucking STag instead of JKS or whatever, and now they're going to be a shit team and they're going to hate STag every time they play. But it is what it is. They had to settle for something. I think this is better than being in this weird whatever. We don't have a 5th player wobble for 6 months. They just need some consistency and start building something, and maybe something pops up on the market a couple of months from now. Maybe they make a change. Maybe Emmy ends up being like super good because their results with him were pretty good. Like
a bit Astralis, right?
They're the best results they had in the last, like, since they benched Crystal, right?
Well, they won an event with Chris J, so I don't know if that's the best results they had. Is it? Well, how did they go with
but
Emmy?
it's a smaller event though, so I'd say
Okay.
like prestige wise, they almost made the grand finals of that DreamHack Masters.
Okay.
They lost to Mouse Sports in like I think it was Mouse Sports in a very close game. Something
Okay.
like that.
All right. So just for me, I suppose the takeaway here is it's hard to get excited until we see them play because it's not the first choice. You know that what the team wanted. Like those things definitely play in people's minds. But Stiko seems to be the professional, so maybe that's carried through with the rest of his teammates. We got anything else on FPX? Or we keep it moving, boys.
No, let's go.
No.
Alrighty. LAN Sweet LAN. These guys do Home Sweet Home. They did Snow Sweet Snow. They're very creative with their naming. These guys over there at Relog Media.
I mean, they
I think
literally
it's terrible.
I mean, this name when the article was announced was Home Sweet Home Masters LAN event,
I'm glad they changed it.
and then people literally in the comments were like, "How can it be Home Sweet Home when it's on LAN?"
Yeah.
And then some guy was just like literally made a comment on HLTV saying like LAN Sweet LAN, and Relog replied to that saying like, "This is an amazing name," and they changed the name. and they offered to like send him some stuff. I don't know what they
Compensation.
They sent him something. So amazing. I just say like listening to the community 101.
Okay.
Right there.
Now, this is an important conversation topic, and this is going to play into the topics later. So we'll put a pin in this one, but we'll also talk about it now at the same time. So it's going to be a double-edged sword here. But winners of the Reload Media's monthly tournaments will earn invites to the $250,000 event to take place in Belgrade, Serbia in February. Now, Reload Media have been doing a bunch of these. I just mentioned them: Home Sweet Home, Snow Sweet Snow. And these have actually become really important parts of the Counter-Strike calendar now, Prof. Would you say?
Yeah, I mean, during this like online era, they have been where all of these like sub-top and top teams that are struggling or go out of an event early, they go there to like get some practice for the lower teams to just evolve and grow through the rankings. So all of the best teams that are not playing like EPL, Blast, whatever at the time, they're playing these. And like overall, when you look at them, some are pretty stacked. We mentioned the FPX1, Fnatic was playing, EG were playing, most of them, Cloud9 were playing, most of them just like got destroyed by the Winstrikes, by the Gambits, by all of these teams that started being good in the last 6 or 9 or 12 months, right? So,
yeah.
Complexity played a shitload like earlier.
Yeah, that's right.
They did. Yeah.
Is this the one, Striker? Fuck, excuse me for being a bit ignorant on this because I don't always look at the format. But are these the ones where like the higher teams get like invited to like the starting in the quarterfinals?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
So this is not something which I guess we do have things like this. Like we have like different events. We just had the Showdown with different qualifiers of the play-ins. But this one here for like an online thing, obviously European focused, is a great way to have that balance, right? You're getting teams who are working their way up through the bracket, and you're getting the teams who are the higher ones already waiting, don't have to go through the arduous task of playing against the 69 bros in fucking the round of 128 teams, right?
Yeah.
So
even to add onto that, like even not only for the top teams or the like top 30, top 40, the event is like split into 2 parts. One is the regional part, which starts with the GSL groups, so 4-team groups. Let's say for Balkans, for like Scandinavia or whatever. And there you have teams that are like 150th in the world that are playing against teams from their region, which is kind of interesting to watch because I don't know, I want to see like a Serbian team playing against an Albanian team or a whatever, or a Bulgarian team. And you kind of see how those super small teams are doing. They get some HLTV exposure. And then the best of those teams go into like a Swiss. And then from that, they go into the main tournament Swiss, and then into the playoffs. So at each point, you have like new teams coming in that are invited to like a higher tier of the tournament. And essentially it gives really these teams that are kind of, let's say, kind of shit, really, they can get to the end of and play like Gambit in theory. They just need to win their matches. And it's not like they're like something's there against them. It's a normal bracket. You play like decent teams around your level. And if you win, you advance.
Yeah. I kind of like the King of the Hill type of feeling where like, you know, you start with like Prof said, like this, the really low teams and some of the better teams, some of the no names coming, and then like the big dogs, like the 4 biggest teams that the team could have that the tournament could have attracted just entering the quarterfinals.
I think the cool thing with this is we miss most of the bullshit that happens just before we get to the good teams, right? Because a couple of like the tier 3, tier 2 names that we know get battling out for the positions to play against the bigger names.
Yeah.
And the bigger names come in and we go, oh shit, look at fucking ex-Winstrike, right? They're looking really fucking crisp right now up against this. And I think that like the cool thing with this is the storyline. Like a lot of these events try and have qualifiers that go event into event into event. This is like kind of just feels like one event. So the timeline of things feels like it's easier to follow. And then they've all just fed this into this event in February. So yeah, just wanted to give a bit of props to these guys. I think they filled a very important void. And yeah, that LAN in February next year. Serbia right now appears to be the hub for people coming to Europe to play Counter-Strike. So we're hopefully, by the time we get around to it, everything's sorted it out and we can have an event in Serbia.
Everyone's already there, so it's not
Yeah.
a big issue, right?
Apparently they don't give a fuck now, so everything should be good come February. All right. Next one. This is to do with the Valve updates. The rules to do with the VAC bans. Now, the TLDR of this is VSM and Yampi, 2 names that you guys might be familiar with, can now compete in events of the major circuit, the RMRs, the majors, etc. However, we've already lost Yampi to Liquid in Valorant. For VSM, it opens up an interesting conversation. I feel like this news has happened. It felt like a really good decision and maybe one that should have come for some time, Striker. But the amount of things that changed because of it doesn't really feel like a lot. What kind of vibe do you have with this?
Yeah, no, it doesn't change a whole lot. I think, at least in terms of like the bands that are playing right now, just because a lot of the bands that like people have been kind of battling against are the match fixing bands, like a a swag or whatever, who was like on the edge of like, was it actually okay for him to get banned permanently and stuff like that?
Yeah.
And obviously, these people are not affected in any way. This is just about VAC bans, and those. Yeah, I mean, at the time when those rules were in place, like the game wasn't even long enough. Like literally, we've gotten past the 5-year point 4 years ago, 3 years ago now. So it's relatively recent still. If this rule could have been put in place a little bit earlier, and it would only affect like the very very early back bans, so wouldn't have been that many people anyway, just because like the game ramped up quite a long time after that. So in general, yeah, it doesn't seem like a big thing at the moment, but I think for the future, this is a pretty big step.
Okay. So
Why do you think for it's a big step for the future though?
Well, because this gives a lot of the players who like we have no idea about, right? Like a lot of the players who are now could be like whatever, it's 17 years old, but they got banned when they were 12, like a stupid kid, right? Who just got banned in a matchmaking game because they cheated, they didn't know better at the time, right? This just gives those players actually like before they just thought, okay, well, if somebody finds out, I'm just fucked, right? I can't play anything. But everybody who got banned like when they were a kid now can kind of like look back and realize that it actually doesn't matter too much anymore.
Well, I'm kind of hoping that we have the generation of kids who are now 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, whatever. I don't know what age restrictions you guys have on Counter-Strike in your countries. That's not even really the thing up for debate right now. You can take that up with your fucking politicians. But the thing is now, esports is a career or a profession, like being, I was going to say an Olympian. That would have been a terrible, an extremely bad reference point because the Olympians get fuck all. Like an elite level sports person, right? Like, let's be honest, the amount of money that these Counter-Strike players are making, like the amount of money that a little birdie told me that is coming in for these fucking stickers as well for the orgs off of what Volvo are doing at the moment. Apparently, it's fucking mental. Like, I thought it would have been tapering down. Apparently, we're talking big boy money.
I think just because they haven't made any stickers for such a long time that there's just like one round of after a year and a half or whatever, and you just get everybody buying them.
There is also more players than ever, right?
That's true.
Don't really think about that because we think about like the esports numbers and the viewer numbers, but the number of people that see it in the game, the more people see it, the more are going to buy it. That's simple math and marketing, how it works. So I guess that makes sense that these stickers have been the most successful ones ever, just because, as Striker says, there haven't been any, and it's been going on for quite a long time right now.
Yeah. There was a tweet I saw just before that I'm scrolling through now. I have multiple points I want to make here, so maybe I'll just make one of them. Let's start with the first one, then I'll find this tweet. But what you were talking about there, Striker, is with like kids, cheating when they're younger, and then going, oh, okay, it's not a big deal. Like I can play now 5 years on. Like I think that I'm hoping that now that people know, and from a young age, right, because kids are into video games, they're going to see the pro tournaments. Kids now, right, like the fucking 3-year-olds know how to use an iPad to go to YouTube and watch their Blinky Bill fucking videos or whatever it is, right? Kids now are like integrated with technology crazy. So hopefully when they're brought into the video game world, that they're brought in with the idea that this is like an actual thing. It's not just it was when we were 17, right? Or when we were 15 and video games was like super new and competing. There was no money in it. Like now, people know that this is like legit business. This is still fun. Like people still play video games for fun, but it is a legit kind of business. So I'm hoping that the people who are on that smaller scale, it's like we don't see fucking 14-year-old kids doing steroids, right, to be better at some form of sport. I'm hoping the same kind of thing with video games, that kids are kind of, I don't know, the culture is not so cheaty G. Like people are not scumbags as much and look for shortcuts. But that's kind of where I'm wrong, right? Because of course humanity does that. What am I talking about? Anyway.
I think like still it's 5 years, however you look at it, and it's 5 years unless they played any Valve.
So is Kaylee still banned?
Yes.
Yep.
If you played an open qualifier,
yes,
and this is also interesting, but another point: if you played an open qualifier and got banned after that, got caught cheating, I guess after that, I don't know how they apply that because your VAC ban doesn't have to be aligned when you actually cheated. You could have cheated like
Yes.
a year ago, technically. But those are details that are left to kind of be interpreted and maybe cleared out with Valve on an individual basis. But as long as you play the tournament and got caught cheating after that, like played a major qualifying tournament, that's an open qualifier, major, and then got back after that, you're permabanned. You're never going to be allowed at a major event or a Valve sponsored event, and I think that's fair. Like that is, they're essentially saying if you know that the pro scene exists and you know what you're like jeopardizing by this, fuck you, you're never going to be allowed back. So
That's
I think
fair.
that's, I mean, it's kind of a, where do you draw the line? You can never be like super perfect, but I think that is kind of okay. Yeah, maybe you can say some kid with 12-year-old kid can enroll in an open qualifier for the major, not even understanding what he did. I also think, like, how are they even going to prove that he's playing that? Like, where are you going to find that evidence that
Who's going
team
to let a 12-year-old play anyway, you know?
That is also
That's
true.
what I was gonna say. Like the
playing, but still.
yeah, the byproduct of this is like I'm not actually sure what the rules are with like different tournament organizers, but a lot of the time it's like 16 up and up, right? For a lot of these qualifiers or tournaments that you have to be or something like that.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it is for the majors though.
Yeah,
I think
I'm
it's
not
for
sure.
ESL tournaments. It's 16 plus because something like based on
Like
German law.
German,
And,
yeah.
and a lot of other tournaments copy that, but I don't think it is for the majors though.
I guess it depends on the game rating in your country and all that shit as well, which is
Yeah.
different everywhere. All right. So overall, the Valve news is good. It shows that they're open to change. So if we're talking about positives, this is a positive one, more so because it shows that Valve over time presented with new evidence or are willing to make these kind of choices, right? Which is one that we have kind of been hammering on for a while. But the thing that people have been banging on about is mainly these iBuy power bans, which are still there. So nothing changes in that regard. This is good for a small amount of people, potentially good for the future, but mainly good because we can see Valve's change or that Valve are open to change. All right. Anyone else got anything on the Valve shit, or we can save it for later?
I'll just say that Tux and Texta also got unbanned.
That's right.
From the Chiefs
Both
legend.
in Valorant.
Both in Valorant now. I talked to Tux. He said it would be amazing if this happened a year ago, but it didn't. So now he's in Valorant. I don't
probably
know
better from Oz at the moment anyway.
I don't even know I don't know if it's better. I think it's kind of fucked the Valorants over there, but whatever. Texta is one of the super hot talents. He was, at least in CS in Australia. So that was unfortunate that he didn't get unbanned earlier. And he's someone that literally got banned when he was 12. That's the classic example. Unlucky, I guess.
Yeah, look, it's timing, right? That's all about the timing. All right, let's move into the RMR stuff. Now, has anything kicked off? Have the qualifiers started yet? Because this is one of the things that's so hard to keep up with, how many different stages there are to these qualifiers. The Flashpoint stuff has kicked off?
Flashpoints, the first two open qualifiers have already started, yeah.
Okay.
It was, I'm trying to remember, Trick,
lost any big
Movistar,
names
Lil
and
Mix,
shit yet,
Sungal.
or-
Not really.
Okay.
Like just below the top 40, type stuff.
All right.
Extremum, I hear someone in chat said that they lost to some, like a Russian mix.
Yeah, we have to find that on it. Where would we find that?
Face It is where the.
So are they
qualifiers-
playing? So you're playing the European one?
I thought they were doing the CIS.
Oh,
one.
no, this is the IEM qualifier.
Oh,
IEM
Okay.
qualifiers
I was like,
today.
yeah.
Oh, sorry for that.
Yeah, I don't think
That's
they.
all right.
I don't think they played in the.
Yeah,
Actually, they
should
have points as well, so it's like they probably be invited later.
They should go to NA to play
Right.
the qualifier.
Oh, that's right. I was thinking
Yeah.
CIS because of the Blast thing. Fucking hell.
No,
There's an
yeah,
Australian
yeah.
team who are playing in
Yeah,
the
they can't.
Blast
I'm pretty
CIS
sure they can't
qualifier,
play
the
in CIS,
American, the
And
American
at this point, who would
RMR
want to,
qualifier.
man? Like, who would want to play in the CIS region right now?
Fuck.
Yeah,
Think about how absurd that is.
yeah, they lost to ex-Winstrike, right? Or who they lose?
They
to?
lost
I think it was,
and,
yeah.
like, recently.
Yeah, and Spirit won the qualifier, the CIS Blast qualifier. That's how they got to the show.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Alright.
Virtus Pro skipped all of that shit. They said not playing a qualifier for an event, and fuck that.
Okay.
So, and then they lost to Force today, 2-0. So
Yeah.
I don't know if that.
That's in the FunSpark ULTI, right?
Yes.
All right, we're going to get to that later. All right, there's probably not too much to touch on with the RMR stuff, is there?
I think we can just say like who the teams are that have qualified so far. There's a news. You made the news yesterday, right? Where is it? Aha, Tricked. So for the closed qualifier for the Flashpoint 3 for Flashpoint 3, we have Sangal, Majors team, the Turkish Turkish side, Movistar Riders, Tricked, Lil Mix, Swedish team, and 4 more teams are going to come through the open qualifiers in Europe.
But the invited teams, right? Who are they likely to be? What team are we talking about? The best in Europe? What is this?
Well, essentially, like, we already have like a bunch of invited teams for the actual RMR event, which is whoever got some sort of the points for being like a legend challenger contender.
Okay, so
that's already
names
like a
outside
lot
of
of the
that.
big teams in Europe. That was like Astralis, Heroic, Vitali, Complexity. No, right? They didn't.
Let me get it up.
Yeah,
Hold on.
Complexity should probably be invited to the closed qualifier.
Yeah,
but they didn't have.
Complexity are probably the
have a
best
lot of
team.
points.
And then who else is there? FaZe didn't get over, or are they? Do they have stickers? I don't remember right now.
I think FaZe have stickers, don't they?
Yeah, they should have.
Yeah, I don't remember which teams are which.
At the open qualifiers so far, like I think like Flush's team is one of the big ones. Copenhagen Flames are trying to qualify. Movistar has said they qualified. Skade didn't get in. Skade are now in the top 30. So these kind of teams are looking to earn a spot there.
Okay. All right. Cool. Well, I guess we'll keep our finger on the pulse of that, see who ends up there. Because this is the thing. I think the majors are obviously great. We all love the majors. But every time this major stuff gets announced, and it's not the TO's fault, right? But it always feels like shit gets announced, and then these qualifiers happen. And then at the start of the year when the calendar looked pretty good, it all just goes to fucking shit. Like the amount of qualifiers that are happening right now is absurd. Like even just with our conversation, we were confusing IEM summer qualifiers with the RMR and this and that. And I saw some tweets from Asilian saying it's super hard to be able to, schedule everything because you're committing to certain tournaments. And then if you have to pull out last minute, then, they're not going to want you back and all that kind of shit. And I get that's a problem we had at the tier 1 stuff. It kind of feels like that's been worked out and now it's just trickled down the line. There's just not enough days. There's too much choice. There's so many events. I think that's what it is, choice. Do you want
I mean, this is also, I guess it comes back to Valve and announcing all of these RMRs so late. And because of that, we got Flashpoint announcing their open qualifiers 4 days ahead of their starts. And this is an open qualifier for the essentially major, which shouldn't happen like that. Should have a bit more time for people to know when these are going on. Maybe some teams want to go in boot camp for these open qualifiers. Like this is how important it is, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree.
That is disappointing. That is pretty disappointing.
And it seems like a part of it is on Valve, just because like some of these tournaments are actually starting late enough that it doesn't matter, because like a lot of these things got announced at the same time. Like the Summit stuff also got announced just before that, I think. But their open qualifiers don't start, which is the North American RMR.
And there are not that many events in North America overall, so it's easier to schedule, right?
Yeah, they literally have their open qualifiers in like 2 weeks or something from now, and they were already announced like a week or two ago or something.
Yeah. All right. Well, I guess we take a look and see where this one ends up. What is this, Lucas? Tricked is double booked next week due to Flashpoint close qualifier. Okay. Yeah. Well, no, that's what we're talking about, right? Like there's so much. That's the thing. At some point, it just has to be choice. Like you're going to have to turn some stuff down. This is the thing in life, it's better to have too much choice than not enough, but it does suck when you have to make some compromises, especially when you want to do everything. But we learn we can't do everything in life, everybody. That's just one of the lessons we learn along the way.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like impossible to schedule these things just so nothing collides. Like there's too much stuff to make room for everybody. So it's like at some point you're gonna have to make concessions.
Yeah, right. And like the events don't know, like can't control what events you're already signed up to, or like only so many minutes in a day, only so many days in a week. It's a difficult thing to pull off. All right, let's just tidy up the recent news, then we'll go to a quick ad break and then we'll be back to talk about the Blast Showdown. Okay, so for the next EPL season 14, we've already got 2 teams qualified now. I think that the way the EPL season works, right, isn't it like the 12 Louvre agreement teams and then just 12 other teams? So like 2 of them are made up from these Pro League seasons, and then there's a bunch that are like invited, and there's some that are through the national championships, or is that the fucking Katowices and Colognes? Anyway, we're going to have 2 of them already found. Ex-Winstrike, obviously that's Hooch's boys over there with Elian, Lackey, Nickelback, my favorite, Crad, and Forrester. They qualified over Saw, and it was a best of 5 final, I suppose, right? But Saw already have a 1 map advantage. So they started 1-0 up in the best of 5, and they lost 3-1. So it didn't win a single map, actually got fucking destroyed, absolutely bodied. And then in the North American side of things, we had the Bad News Bears, which you guys might not be too familiar with. Have John G, who is of Chaos fame, PTR. We were talking about his old mob before with Hayes, Cutler, fucking those guys going back many years ago. Swisher, Alter, SPUNJ, that's a name that's been kicking around. Beat Triumph 3-2. Triumph with the ones with the map advantage. Cooper, Shakezula, Cynic, B Wills, and Viz. So we got Bad News Bears and we got ex-Winstrike, 2 teams that an org will be in the next Pro League season. Anything really to take away from this, boys? I don't know if there's a huge amount to dig our teeth into.
I guess
Nothing. No, go
yeah,
on.
just like 2 teams that are pretty affordable for organizations with a spot in a league that lasts a month, but you essentially get like 1 week of top tier exposure at minimum, right?
Sure.
With the format that they have now. So that's the main thing. Also, I'd say, does being without an org push these players like that extra mile? Probably, because both of them winning in respective regions, coming back from from the lower bracket, I think there is something to it. So props to them. I just that's the main takeaway for me.
Do you think this will help them get picked up for an org with an EPL spot striker?
I mean, it's not as lucrative as it used to be, just because an APL spot meant a little bit more before this whole change, but to this global thing. So, I mean, I'm sure it helps to a degree, just because like that's guaranteed exposure at one of the biggest, like at a pretty long event, like a month long event or so. That's like potentially going to happen on LAN, whatever. So I think it should definitely be a something that will help them.
Okay. All right. Let's take that ad break and let's get talking about Blast Showdown, shall we? Lucas, hit it.
The Xtrfy M42 RGB, what a fun mouse with 5 colorways, lightweight frame at just 59 grams with the swappable backplate to suit your grip style, the sensor, the easy core, the smooth skates, and driverless control for RGB and DPI is why you should check out the M42 RGB down below.
These bombs go to the teammates.
I wanna see you rolling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Parry Match, your esports teammate.
All right, we are back from the break. Thank you for sticking with us. And once again, thank you to our sponsors for making this all possible. Now we're going to talk about the Blast Showdown, big event that just went on down. And I saw a tweet from Peter replying to somebody who was talking about whether, I think it was FunSpark ULTI, was going to have an MVP. And somebody asked about Blast Showdown and said, would it have been a big event with an MVP if it wasn't a qualifier? And he said, yeah, because obviously all the big names there. So that kind of, shows you the grandeur of the event. We had some heavy hitters there, right? Astralis, Vitality, you had a rubbish performance. Obviously, Gambit Heroic, 2 best teams in the world. They were in the second second final. It was a single elimination bracket, wasn't it? So they've qualified themselves a slot in the, what are we, spring? Is this the spring finals?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. They're in the spring finals. Gambit secured a slot over Heroic, and G2 got one over Spirit. But let's focus on the Gambit Heroic situation, Prof, because you made a tweet. We're gonna dive into this tweet in a couple of different portions. So let me just bring this one up. Lucas, bring this one up for everybody at home.
This is one of those tweets you make it and it's gonna bang. Like, people are gonna like it. It just hits those like emotional spots for people, like fucking closed circuit, fucking invites. I want like everything clean, pure in my sport, and especially with all of this football news going on at the same time, I think people really were really pissed overall.
Well, let's dig into the first. Let me read this for everybody, and then we'll dig into the first part, and then we'll get into the second part later. But Prof tweeted today saying the 2 best CSGO teams in 2021 so far are Gambit and Heroic. Currently, neither of them is partnered with Blast, ESO, or Flashpoint. They have no secure spots at events. Great advertisements for the open circuit or what is left of it. Now, the first part, the 2 best CSGO teams in 2021 are Gambit and Heroic. Do you think there's many people who could argue with that, Prof?
I don't see really like who could you. Maybe you can say Virtus Pro in some ways, but I don't think you can say like Astralis has been, or Vitality, or Navi. Like, yeah, Navi won one event, but after that they have been like all big 3 teams have been pretty inconsistent. So I don't know. I'd say these 2 have shown the most this year.
Okay. Would you say there's anybody else, Strike, or do you agree with that?
No, I mean we've
There's a
had
lot of recency bias around this
this
heroic
is
roster,
like
right?
this is very recent, obviously, but at the same time, like these two consecutive results at um with Pro League and this now, and even back to Katowice, obviously, when we look at Gambit, like that's about as much consistency as we got all year long, I think, from a team. I think Gambit is absolutely undisputed. Like, I don't think there's a discussion there. As to Heroic, obviously, this is just a couple of events, so it's still quite early to tell with them. But yeah, I think they're at least in the discussion.
Okay. So, like, we're talking about a rivalry being established here, Prof. Is that just because of the back-to-back events in the space of the 2 weeks, or do you just think right now, hot to trot, two best teams that we're looking at here, and hopefully we get to see more? Is it because of the type of matches? You just
I think
unequivocally the best two teams?
I mean, when you look at Heroic, maybe as Striker said, maybe they can be disputed to some degree because they only had 2 events now, right? But they went on a winning streak of 12 maps.
I think it's 3 now. That was it the DreamHack qualifier? So it's not really an event.
Yeah, they played that and then all of this. But the fashion that they did that, playing against some good teams, maybe not against the best teams. I think that's the biggest fault maybe you can put on Heroic's path, that they didn't play Vitality or whatever. But Vitality is trash now, so who cares, right? It just doesn't really matter. Like, they probably played teams that are stronger than these on paper strong teams. Gambit is a step in front of them overall. They beat the Astralis, they beat all of them. So maybe when you look at all of the results together, maybe Navi had that early win and a couple of decent results. So maybe they are the second best. But I think, yeah, Heroics' streak on Inferno, on in series in general, that puts them as like a super strong contender. And then Gambit is the only team that has stopped them so far, and that makes that. And Gambit, as we talked about them a lot, they just have a good run overall this year.
And it was an exciting game yesterday again as well, right? Like,
Yeah.
when all 3 maps obviously both series yesterday delivered. They were very entertaining. I think off of that, they've secured the slots. Now, hold up, we were going to talk about that. Oh yeah, so I guess we can quickly just surmise this, because now they have all their teams locked. It's Navi, Big, Complexity, EG, NIP, FaZe, G2, and Gambit. Those are the teams who will be attending those spring
That's
finals.
A very weird team list, by the way.
Yeah, but this is kind of the point, and this is kind of like, I guess the purpose of tonight's show is because I think the rankings right now, and also it's not even just the rankings, it's like the excitement curve, not the excitement curves, maybe priority curves for teams right now. None of them are in sync. Everybody's in, like, either you have teams in a rebuilding phase, you have teams in like an establishing phase, you have teams in like a just surviving phase. So it's really hard right now. And with Counter-Strike, it's super competitive, I would say. And I think that, like, all this extra time that we keep talking about that people have had at home without traveling just to grind, it's really being shown in the quality of the game and the competitiveness of these teams. Because we hear, like, all the tier 2s, the tier 3s, there's so many good teams out there. It's hard to get these wins. It feels like it's almost hard to get these wins everywhere, Striker, right? Like, what are you looking at when you consider the whole Counter-Strike landscape at the moment, and just how close-knit it is when 1 week a team who looked average is beating some big names, or putting up some good results?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still not completely sold on like the general level of CS rising.
Okay.
I think it's still, like, obviously we are at this point just because the CS has just not been as stable, at least people have not been as consistent as they used to be. God knows whether this is because we're online, or whether it's just people have gotten, like, the priorities have changed a bit. Not necessarily because we are playing in a different environment, but it's just like they don't put as much time into the game or whatever like that when it comes to the bigger teams. So I think that's the biggest factor why you probably feel this way, that like things are super competitive, just because we haven't really had like the most dominant side in the last year and a half. Essentially, like, we've had kind of periods where Astralis were really good and Vitality were really good. Navi had their moments, and now we're kind of like in the next year where none of those 3 teams are actually at the top, and it's Gambit now stepping up and stuff like that. So it's just very periodical, and nobody is able to keep their spot at the top for very long. So I think that's probably contributing to it a lot.
Okay. Let's run through some of the other names here. Lucas, I linked you the overview of the last spring Showdown page, so if you can bring that up, we can have a quick look. So I guess let's the ones that jump off the page. The Vitality 9Z result jumps off the page, Prof, but I feel we could sweep that one under the rug, knowing that Kyojin's on the way in and RPK's on the way out. Yeah.
I mean, yes and no. I think that doesn't excuse them for losing this game. I'd say not even try doing a 1.57 rating, not in the way that they lost it. Zayu having a 0.83 rating, like the lowest in the team. These are still things that are concerning, and we can't really say like, oh, they're having a new player and everything's fine. Let's just like close our eyes and pretend this didn't happen, because it's worrying, especially because like Apex after the game it wasn't like it was whatever to him. He wanted to have a good showing with RPK, the last event with RPK. So it obviously meant something. They didn't go in not expecting to do well, but they didn't practice, and you try to underestimate teams here. In CS nowadays, you get spanked. That's just what happens.
Well, this was the team that did it 9Z. Obviously, they had a stand-in of Estor, who I think has been in the movie Star Riders before. So this wasn't even a full roster that they lost to, and it's one of these exotic teams that we're never really expecting a whole lot out of. So it stands out for that.
Exotic teams,
Exotic
just because
teams.
they're from Latin America.
No, but Renegades are an exotic team. Tyloo are an exotic team. They're not teams that we're seeing compete in the mainstays, right? They were the wild cards. They're a bit more funky, right? Because they're coming in, they're throwing a spanner in the works. I'm not saying that because they work at a fucking strip club dancing around a pole and we call it exotic dancing, right? They're exotic because we're just not familiar with them. And it's like when you have a dragon fruit, Prof. How often you having a dragon fruit in your day to day?
Never. Literally only in like exotic country hotels.
Exactly.
Like when you go to Brazil or Mexico and then there's some dragon fruit. Like, what the fuck is this?
And there you go. And that's what 9Z, NASA, that's what these boys are. They're the dragon fruits of Counter-Strike.
That being said, like fruit in Brazil, I remember being like in Sao Paulo for
it's
one
very
of the
fresh.
It's like it's like on steroids. It's amazing. So that's just like an observation. Brazil fruit, good.
All right, I'm going to throw you a bunch of names here, Striker. If none of them excite you, you don't have to say anything at all. But if any of them excite you from what you saw at Blast, I want to know why. For either way, because they were either worse than you expected, they did better than you expected, or maybe some other fun fact. Saw, NASA, Extra Salt, Endpoint.
I mean, let's stop at Endpoint. I think I was waiting for the Dignitas one, man, but just because it's like the biggest topic.
No, that's at the
like
end.
Something that, yeah, exactly. I was hoping you would start with the good ones, just so I don't have to skip over like 6 names and just get to the one I want to talk about.
Okay.
But I think Endpoint, where considering that they literally just lost their best player and had to kind of make do with Thomas, who obviously had already played with them before, and it's not like it's an entirely new player. He's still going to be pretty well acquainted with everybody on the team. So it's not like a massive change or anything, but obviously like it's something that will probably diminish your performance. And considering that they definitely did well against G2, they had a really good shot on the first map and even the second. I think I'm trying to remember how that went, but I think there was like a pretty big comeback that happened there.
16-14, 16-11 on Dust 2.
Yeah, it's just a pretty solid showing for like a last place finish from Endpoint, I think.
Okay. There's nothing else there really leaping off the page. Let's talk about the Astralis situation. Now, obviously, losing to OG, who were given the 16th seed because they made a roster change, I think maybe felt like it was more of a punishment for Astralis than it was for OG going up against a team who was on the cusp of being a top 5 team. I think the highest they made it was top 6. They just added 2 new pieces, which feel fantastic, almost like they were custom built for these slots. So it's a firepower upgrade. And we're playing together in a boot camp environment, which is only going to inspire good moods for an Astralis who just all went back to their homes, I think, right? So you look at this one here, Prof. Is this more of the just decline of Astralis? Is this them surviving? Like we've had used as a term on this show before. What do you think is going on with this team right now? And do you think there's a way out of it without changes?
Going into this match, especially, I wasn't really thinking of Astralis as a massive favorite. What we talked about on the last show, they're showing at Pro League their last 2 games against Gambit and Furia, which were awful. That was worrying enough for me to go into the OG game and say like this is a 50-50 easily. And so losing that game, especially when I saw that, like, talking to Device, who said that they almost didn't practice, that they don't really take this as like a big event. Not he said something along those lines, that they didn't really have big expectations from the tournament. And then Boobski coming in for the first game, it was all so weird. It wasn't weird. It was maybe expected. But yeah, I think with all of that, the result was expected, and it implies that something really needs to change in the team, or is going to change, and that is why everything sucks.
Okay.
One of those things. I think for me, those are the two options that are happening right now in Astralis.
Okay, so let's dig into the Bubsky one here, Striker. When you saw that happen, were you like, well, zips out, see you later, mate? Like, were you surprised to see him back in the next match? What did that signal to you?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely expected him to just play out the rest of the event. That's kind of like what I expected from what they were talking about earlier in the year when this 6-man thing, like, everybody started stepping out of that train, and Astralis were obviously one of those teams saying that something will change. We're like, he can play more maps than just Nuke. So I thought that was just going to lead to Bubsky just standing in front of the entire event, so that they give him a reasonable shot, and see what he can do if he's put in on all maps. But then he only plays one map. They shit the bed, and he's just out for the next map. And I'm not sure if that was the plan, or if it was just reactive. But either way, I think it points to how Astralis seem to be lost about what they need to do to get out of this situation. I just think they're not even sure themselves what they should do.
Well, if we just have a look at, like, remember Nickel and Nihome made that tweet after they had the loss not long ago about was it like free Bubsky or something like that, right? And when you consider that, and then Bubsky comes in for the next game, it's like, I don't know. You can obviously read into those things. It could just be a bit of banter. I don't fucking know. But it just, for me, seems like the camp over there has been in a weird spot ever since Glaive and Zipex went on the break, right? And it just sticks with me. I think I said this last week, but it just sticks with me that when Esatag was sold to Cloud9 after they did good in that DreamHack fall event, I think it was. I just remember them playing well there. And I just remember when Zonic came out and it was like, well, it's not up to us, right? The orgs decided that we want to sell him. Like, I feel that the remnants of that happening, like with the team, because it's only 5 guys, right? Like, or 6 if we include the coach. Like, by taking parts out reluctantly, it's not like you're doing it from a team of 15 people and it's like, okay, yeah, we'll miss Timmy. He used to bring the fucking oranges. He was good at keeping the spirit up and he was a pretty good player. But like, losing 1 of 5 or 1 of 6, and especially if he did something for the mood or so, like, that's a pretty big thing to lose there. So I don't know. I mentioned the S-Attack thing next week. I think it's going to happen. I guess the only issue there is the contract stuff with Cloud9. I don't know what any of that looks like. We just know that they spend an awful lot of money.
But we also saw
Alex. Yeah. This Alex departure makes things a bit different, because I would never have expected for him to get out of his contract so fucking early. That's insane.
I think I said last week, though, I was like, if I was Cloud9 and you knew you weren't going to have a Counter-Strike team and you knew the Counter-Strike landscape right now, if I don't know the deals, but assume that they still had to pay some form of salary to these guys, it's probably better just to let them go, even with the buyout. Like, that money, you've lost it anyway. You're not going to recoup it on Counter-Strike anytime soon, right?
Yeah. I think it's probably just that type of a thing. Just cut your losses and part ways.
Yeah, stop paying them all that cash every month just to sit there. Let them go. See if they can get bought out. Like, stomach the loss.
It's very early though. Like, it's not like they were just like, what?
Yeah, but dude,
how long is
who's
this, like,
buying
a month ago?
S-Attack? Like, if it's not, and Astralis, they don't strike me as they strike me as they're in the business of making money. They don't strike me as they're in the business of wasting money. Right?
Yeah.
So, like, if they know the value of S-Attack, they know that they got a fucking crazy deal on him, right? And even to bringing him back in this era, like, if it was the magic piece and it meant that they could go in and win every LAN and we had the big stadium events, and then sure. But it's the online. We still don't know when this is going to slow down. So I reckon Astralis, by like waiting, if that's what they're doing, it's probably the right call. We'll see how that one all filters out.
I did see the Insta story of S-Attack.
Here we go. On the bike.
On the bikes.
On the bike.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, literally, they're biking together. So I just thought of you, SPUNJ, instantly.
What are you doing? A bike ride?
Yeah.
You're talking about strategies.
Obviously. You read Device's interview. He said, like, Supri, S-Attack, magic chemistry, something's there. So we'll see. Like, on paper, just like replacing Zipnix with S-Attack, I don't see why you wouldn't do it if you could.
I think he's a more active support player.
Yeah. Is there anyone here that thinks that wouldn't be at this moment a good idea?
I think it's a great move.
I think it's a good thing to try for sure.
Yeah.
Lucas?
Lucas says no.
Okay. He doesn't want to speak. He's okay. He's our Danish expert. We thought we'd get a bit more out of him. We'll keep it here just for this topic.
I mean, what do you want me to say?
Look, man, you know all the gossip. You're reading the server logs. What's going on?
I don't have anything with those guys.
All right. Well, I guess we got nothing with Lucas. Maybe we got nothing with
Astralis, we need a server though.
You know,
contact our man. He doesn't leak anything, as you just saw. So. Amazing.
All right. We've done a bit of promotion for Lucas's side business. G2. Okay, this Nico AWPing experiment. If I get another snide fucking tweet, what about Nico's AWPing? Who the fuck really cares? They made up they said he was going to be AWPing. It's pretty clear that was a dumb decision. Sometimes he's AWPing. Sometimes he has a Krieg. Sometimes Amanek has an AWP. Sometimes Hunter has a MAC-10. Who knows what's going on? But all we know is G2 qualified somehow, some way. They made it. And it was actually a really good game against Spirit. I thoroughly enjoyed that. It was fucking hype on Nuke, the overtime game. Dusty was close as well. It was a good series to watch overall. But this is a quick one to throw your way, Striker. Get ready to catch. And I want something decisive. Okay. But are you sold on this G2 roster? Or does it look as flimsy as fucking God knows what?
I think they're just not entirely sure like where this op experiment is going. I'm not sure. I'm still not sure what to think of it, just because obviously like it seems to change for map, from not even by map. It just seems to change by, I don't know, like mood that Nico's in. Like, am I gonna op today? Am I not gonna op today? Do I like opping on this map? Do I want to get the op right now? It just seems like there's no sort of system to it, and they just really are going kind of off feel. And maybe they just base their playstyles around like whatever opponents they're choosing, and maybe that's like dependent on it as well. But in general, it's just like Amanek was opping more than Nico this tournament, right? So there's just some
we can check out
all the time. I just opened it now. So Amanek's op percentage 41.8%, which is normal for a main opper, maybe like on the lower side.
Yeah,
but that's a main opper number. Nico, do you hazard the guess?
I already saw it, so
Punch
24%.
10%.
Fuck, that dropped off a lot since
so that's literally I have a feeling that in his phase days he'd have more percent op kills than this. And from like what I understood, I think they have an idea how they want to do it, and it's just like now it's Amanek CT side, Nico T side opping. And that being said, you don't really use the op on the T side that much.
Well, not when he has the AK like he did in Window in that Mirage clip. Fucking hell, did you see that?
At that one tap was
pretty the one taps.
Spicy shit.
I think it's just like super backwards to what it should be though. Like if you have Nico on the AK, give him the fucking AK. Don't give him an AWP. Give him an AWP on the CT side.
I think they should only use the AWP when like if you have Nico and Hunter in the server running around lopping off heads with one taps, even Jackie Boy on the aim on the T side with the AK is fucking swift as anything. You have those three running around, right? Of course, an AWPer of like Simple's caliber, that is going to be hard to deal with. But like pulling the AWP out when you need it, I think is going to be more beneficial for the team than going, oh, we have to have an AWP, right? Like I think, of course, like that seems stupid to say when we know that the best players are AWPers, but for this roster specific, not everyone can play the same version of counte-strike, unfortunately. We're just not like... We don't have classes, right? You don't just play a class.
This was the context of Malik's comment on the Blast interview, if you heard it, when he said like there is no meta, and Wonders made a tweet about it. But because how I understand that, it was more like a offhand joke comments, like people asking, oh, you need to play like double up, you need to play like this, you need to have one supportive player. It's like there is no meta. Like fuck all of that shit. Like
the terms is easier to explain.
Yeah, I mean, you just need to win the game in the end. Do you use an op? Do you use 2 ops? Do you use 5 ops? It doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter if all of the top 10 teams except you use 4 ops every round.
Yeah.
If you're using 5 rifles and winning. I think that was what he was trying to say, but in that like bantery French way, right, of explaining things in kind of abstract terms. So I understand that, and like I think Nico's T-side opping isn't about Nico, but about the team. It's just like, how do they utilize Hunter? That Hunter doesn't overlap with Nico, and that they get the most out of Amonek's versatility, and they get Jax as the entry. And then I guess Nico just fits into that role where you should probably have the op if you want to have the op on that role, on that round.
Yeah.
Because if you look at Hunter, he's been fucking insane.
Yeah.
Literally amazing. I think individually his form is the best in CS right now. Just like his aim is so fucking good. Every other round you look at like how do you do this? And it's just like one kill. It's not like a highlight of 4 frags, but it's like one kill you should not even be considering attempting, and he pulls it off. So from that perspective, it seems like it could work, but it's so fucking weird. Like Amonek CT side, this and that. I don't know. I'm skeptical about it. That's what I'll say.
I think it's just funny. Like, imagine putting like one of the world's elite fucking riflers on the op just so he can unlock Hunter. That's kind of funny. Who's his cousin as well, by the way.
But imagine if they were both able to, because they're both like what they can bring to the server in terms of just their aim and just destroying like a whole area of their map, right? Like, I feel like it should be, obviously both of them aren't going to get 3 kills in a round. It's not physically not possible, but like in terms of there being positions on the map, like you've got 2 amazing riflers to be able to trade off of each other or make space for each other and stuff, like, and the synergy, right? I always used to play with the 2 guys who were cousins. One name was Heno, the other guy name was Spanky. That were their names, and they used to play, and then when they were in clutch situations, they never spoke to each other, right? They just fucking had this cerebral thing going on, and they would just clutch and it would work. And I don't know what it was. It was just like, yeah, good one, guys. And I think, you know, they were cool dudes. Maybe the G2 guys have that too. Anyway, terrible anecdote of mine gone. Do we want to talk about G2 anymore? Keep this one going. Boys, there's so much juicy shit I want to dig into. We can fucking...
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about G2 for an hour, I guess, and we wouldn't get to the bottom of what is going on. But I think it's they're trying to make the most out of what they got, and this is an attempt to do that.
Yeah, it works. I think it still needs time. Still need plenty of time. All right, Spirit. We didn't see Spirit while EPL was on. I don't know what they were doing. They didn't qualify for EPL. What were they kind of up to in that time?
They weren't invited. They couldn't qualify. I guess they could if they. No, I don't think they really could.
I think it would be by world rankings, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. They somehow.
I think FPX got the spot because they were higher in the world rankings at the time. I don't know. I'm not certain on that.
Yeah, I think like because of the cutoff, like Spirit hadn't yet gone there, done their jump, and it just went to FPX or whatever it was.
Okay, so Spirit had to win the domestic qualifier for Blast, right? They were in the Pinnacle Cup. They did the Blast Showdown, and next thing they have is DreamHack Masters. Now, they beat Dignitas. They beat Extra Assault. They're 2 names who we think Spirit should be beating, and then they lost to G2. Going into this one, is this one, Prof, where you think that Spirit were the favorites, or was this like I'm not sure?
Against G2, you mean?
Yeah,
I would say they were. Last show I said that they're the team that needed this the most.
Yep.
And maybe that felt in the last rounds of Nuke was the decider, right?
Overtime, right?
Yeah. I think that felt like they really needed to get into another like elite tier competition, because otherwise they'll just kind of just miss out on these opportunities. And for a team like them that doesn't have these invites locked in for Blast and ESL, it's hard. You need to like prove it over and over again that you're a top tier team. And just one loss like this that is super close can see you really suffer in the long term.
Sure. They got DreamHack coming up, right? And I was having a look today. I was just looking around some of the ESL Pro Tour stuff for Cologne.
They played G2 in the first match.
Yeah, but the thing as well at that event is like with the points that you can make. We never really talk about this, but it's the same with the Blast one, right? With their global finals, I guess ESL have 2 and Blast have their 1 long one.
Yeah.
But the Blast one, obviously, Heroic's locked in. But for the way that the EPT rankings work at the moment, I think only like a couple of names are locked in to guarantee in the European side of things. And Spirit are one of the names on the cusp right now. Like they need to have like a pretty decent showing considering the field at DreamHack to be able to lock themselves in for Cologne. So this is going to be a tough event, right? Because I think that same thing that I just said goes for, and if I just did my homework right, goes for Complexity, G2, Vitality, Mouse, FaZe, Big, and Spirit. Like 8 teams all contending for 4 potential slots. I think it was. I got the math somewhere, but it's going to be like DreamHack has a quite a huge impact on the Cologne event in July, right? So I think this one for Spirit is going to be important. But like, I didn't feel let down by the Spirit performance. I just feel like are they lacking? I don't want to say experience at this point, because I don't think it would be that. Maybe it's just that's how competitive CS is. I don't know where to put this one. It's not like it's a bad loss. It's just like, oh yeah, that kind of sucks. Like, for the points you're saying, it sucks more than the type of counter-strike they played. I think Dexter went missing on Dust too. And that was about it. Like, I don't really have too many other takeaways from Spirit in this one. Striker, you got anything?
Not in particular. I saw the last game that they played. I didn't really see the first 2, but actually no, they played Liquid in the first round.
No,
they
Extra
played.
Salt.
Oh, that was Dignitas that played Liquid, right?
They banged Extra Salt super hard. It wasn't even
Oh yeah,
close
I
at
didn't see
all.
that one. I only saw the last one, and yeah, I mean there was that comeback as well that they kind of flapped at the end. So hard to say what to make of Spirit just because of how little they play right now. They were on that like month-long break essentially because they didn't get any invites. So I'm hoping that they get back on the horse, because they kind of look like they would be able to like contest for like a top 5 spot in the world alongside of these other CIS names. So I don't think it's the worst for them. Like, obviously, in terms of what Prof was saying, that's kind of rough, just because of how few opportunities you get. But you do have like another huge event coming up that is going to be a little bit easier to go through. I think at least like to make a good appearance. So
sure,
yeah.
All right. Well, let's pivot. And I know you wanted to talk about Dignitas, Striker. So I'll tell you what, with them, they with their retooled roster, for those who aren't too familiar, haven't been keeping up. And I think last time we were on the show, we spoke about them, and I was like, yeah, they've been showing a bit of promise. And you were quick to jump to the fact that we weren't going to be expecting a whole lot. So what's changed?
I think I'm just a little bit more sold on that team, actually.
Okay.
Like, obviously, before we saw them have that really close series against EG in one of the previous tournaments. I don't remember which one right now. And there was a couple of series against OG, I think, that they played and lost, and that they could have won. And so, like, this coupled with the next series that they played, I think that was against Spirit, right? I'm not just making things up right now.
Dignitas lost to Spirit 2-1. Yep.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, beat Liquid, lost to Spirit.
Yeah, those 2 series just made me think that this Dignitas roster is actually kind of legit. The Liquid one, that was
Liquid looked like
definitely
they were
off
out
day.
of it, bro.
That was definitely an off day for Liquid or something like that. At least the first map. Like, from the Vertigo one, actually I think was pretty legit even against Liquid. But like the first map was just Liquid not showing up at all.
Just quickly on that Liquid thing, right? What I equate the body language to, and I tried to like put myself in Moses's shoes there. When those reactions were happening so early from that team, and it just like mentally they were actually having a fucking tantrum. What I picture there is, it's the nightmare I have of being a dad. And I'm not a dad yet, but I want to be one day, right? But the fucking nightmare I have is being in like a public, let's just say supermarket, right? And my kid, for whatever reason, just has a fucking tantrum, just sitting on the ground crying, just, arms and legs everywhere. And I'm just standing there like, what the fuck just happened, right? And I got no idea how to fix this problem. But everybody's looking at me like, fix your fucking kid. And the kid, that's what it looked like for the Liquid situation. I'm looking at Moses like, Jason, say something. And then every time the reaction is getting worse and worse. And I'm just like, what the fuck is going on? Like, why are they so tilty G? Like, I had no idea what was going on there. Like, Liquid in that game looked all sorts. And like, I think that definitely gave Dignitas some confidence, right? Because as a team who's traditionally around the tier 2 realms, you beat Liquid, you're going to be running with a lot of confidence there. And Lecro, actually, that's not the one that excited me. This Heap kid, Heap he's got a rough name.
Good.
Yeah, he looked good, right? And it's a Swedish name that hasn't been on anybody's radar. Do we know much about him, Striker?
Even when he came onto Dignitas, we were like, who?
Yeah. It wasn't one of like it didn't feel like it came with like, how we sometimes see like a Swedish guy make I played with him in the Swedish version of Faith or whatever.
Yeah, he just came out of nowhere. Like, I don't think he even had like a previous legitimate team, that we've actually heard about.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a weird one.
He's been pretty good for Dignitas for some time. He played the last Flashpoint event. He pulled off some clutches there that made the rounds on the Reddits and everything. So I think it's the funniest thing, because people on Reddit also, where that clip was, 2 weeks later are going to be like, Olofmeister, free agent, replace this, looks at the roster. Heap doesn't have a picture. Replace Heap with Olofmeister. It's like, what the fuck are you doing? He's probably like one of the best players that they have on the team, at least in terms of potential long term, because he's like a 17-year-old kid or something. Am I wrong?
21.
No, he's 21, but
Yeah.
whatever. He's
Still
new to
young.
the top tier, so it's kind of the same shit in
Sure.
my books.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that was super funny.
I guess getting to see more of Dignitas is what we need, but Lekro performing like at that level is going, because the thing is, when we spoke about this team in the beginning, when it had Get Right, when it had Exist, when it had Freiburg Forest and Halzek, it was like, well, Halzek, I remember how Fifi even like I think referred to the team as similar to like a Vitality situation with like Halzek having to be the Zywoo figure.
I think
like,
he was super pissed about making that comment, by the way, just because of the backlash that he got for it. Just because, how could you compare this kid to Zywoo, man?
Yeah, but that's the thing, right? This is always going to be the case. Now, the problem is with that initial roster. Like, let's be honest. If that team thought like I think they must have honestly thought it was the environment that they had as a team previously that was the reason they didn't succeed. I think like the problem that happens with all these names, and this is what I think Astralis are potentially on the cusp of if they don't get a wriggle on, is like the VP evolved and the NIP evolved, and I think this is what happened to Fnatic recently. Have been bitten in that same way. Is if you're not aggressive enough when your roster changes are necessary, right? Or you don't know when that writing is on the wall, you're going to get left in that situation where it's going to pass you by, and then the amount of work you have to do. It's like cramming. You get an assignment at the start of the year, and your teacher's like, by the end of the year, I want you to build your dream board in fucking paper mache with an exploding volcano. And if you don't do it, you get like with this situation. It was we look at this team. I don't know what that reference was. Where was that reference going? Was that making any sense?
No, not really.
What the fuck am I talking about half the time? I just caught myself like mid thought, like, who the fuck is driving this thing? Like, am I in control of the words coming out of my mouth?
I don't think so.
What the
He's
fuck?
a autopilot, man.
But anyway, in the beginning, this roster, right, it did look like, getting the hard work out of the four, right, not Halzerk, out of the four was going to be difficult because they've already had their day, right? And to be motivated to get back to that top spot, it's a fucking difficult thing to do. We always talk about that, right? But now that this roster is pretty fresh, like Forest and Freiburg's still doing a new role in-game leading, right? Still relatively new for him. Halzerk and Heap are new and hungry. Lekro's always been floating around the middle of the pack, never really been in the upper echelons of the elite. Now they have enough hunger, right? Is that like a differentiating factor? Do we put anything into that?
I mean, I don't like these hunger things. Those are always hard to assess, really. You don't really know what's going on in someone's life. And then you say he doesn't have hunger. And then half of Brazil is attacking you the next day, right? Rest in peace, Semler, when he was on the show back then, whenever that happened. I think Lekra is just like a fucking good player that had potential to be in a pretty good team at the moment as things were. Dignitas were the team that snatched him. And that elevated their game to a new level. I think that was like the easiest way to put it is just, I don't know, like Diha and Ents and some of these players that were around and maybe undervalued, underappreciated for what they had. I mean, when NIP kicked Lekro, I think his average rating was 110 or something. It was obvious that he wasn't a bad player. Then he went to North, then North was kind of shit, but whatever. That's a whole different discussion.
Sure.
And then someone pulled him out of all of that like poo, and now he's in a team that functions, which is Dignitas, and that's it. I think also Liquid fucked up the veto going on Nuke and Vertigo, which are Dignitas, I think, two best maps.
Yeah,
Nuke,
Vertigo seemed weird, but I think they could have been trying to pick into that more, haven't they? Like,
yeah, but like, I don't know.
They should be able to flex harder in the map pool, right? If you're the favorite.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, in general, like the fact that like they beat Spirit on Nuke as well. Like they're just such a legit team on Nuke. Like they've had so much success on that map. But yeah, that Vertigo one I think kind of legitimizes the entire run. Like previously, I thought of them a little bit of like a Nuke team. It was kind of even like before when they were going down as an IP. Like this is way fucking far back, right? They were always good on Nuke, even when the team wasn't actually that good. And this is kind of like I thought that this was kind of like the remnants of that they're just getting some legit wins on Nuke, and that's it. Like they don't really have the map pool to back up like big best of 3 wins and stuff like that. And now they actually beat Liquid on Vertigo as well. And I think that kind of legitimizes it. And they had to fight for it. It wasn't like Liquid just didn't show up there. That was actually a pretty hard fought win.
Sure.
So I think that's just a big part that made Dignitas a lot better in my eyes.
Okay. Well, I think it's one of these situations as well. And as we mentioned, I think it just continues to feed into that discussion about how difficult counte-strike is at the moment, right? I think we can all say Gambit is the best team right now, and that we have a clear like teams who we would say are in the top 15 or the top 20. But then once you get into the doldrums, like maybe even like on any given Sunday, someone in the top 30 or like at the cusp of the top 30 could beat someone in the top 15. Like I think we're seeing a lot of that now, right? And this is just a lot of work going in for these teams. You know, they might have a couple of good gimmicks, a couple of good strats. I'm not saying that's the same with Dignitas, but I'm saying that's where they've been forged, you know, and now that they're playing against the bigger names where we see more consistent results, it's obviously we put the stock, right? We put the stocks in these bigger names. So the results against them mean more, even though we don't have this everybody versus everybody thing going on. So hopefully more from the Swedes. You know, they're not doing too good across the board right now, but Vendetta and his crew, we'll see what happens. All right, let's move into the FunSpark ULTI chat. This one went live today. Lucas, bring this one up here. We can show people the bracket. This event finishes on the 26th, so that's going to be on Monday. The finals on. They put the final on Monday. Am I reading that right? The 26th of April.
26th, yeah.
Why have they put it on a Monday? They're just shooting themselves in the. I guess. All right. Well, the grand final will be next Monday. For those of you who can attend that one.
SPUNJ visibly upset.
Red meter going up.
It's on a Monday. Anyway, it doesn't matter. It's a $250,000 prize pool event. So lots of smackaroos, 150K for first. Now, we had Heroic pull out of this one. Am I right with that? Did I read that headline? Okay. Yeah. And Dignitas, the team we were just talking about, get to step in. They'll be playing against EG with MICHU for their opener tomorrow. That one's at 5:30. Today, we had VP versus Fours with Fours, who were actually one of the CIS teams with a lot of hype a couple years ago, right? And then they dropped off. Now we got no more Exi power over there. They actually took down VP 2-0, overpassing Mirage, and Complexity took care of business against Harvu. Big versus Xtrfy. This isn't like a tier 1 event, Prof, would you say? How do we categorize this?
Yeah,
tier 1.5, tier 2?
Like on the MVP list, it's like a tier 3 but tier 1 is only for majors, right? Or like these top elite events. So that's kind of, I don't know, these tiers are super bad and everyone uses different terms, but I think it's a pretty good event. 2 top 10 teams, if I'm correct, versus Pro Complexity, and then like 2 more top 15 teams, and the rest is like also pretty decent teams that can challenge all of the others. So like I'd say this is like a DreamHack Open. I think if you look at
that's a fair comparison with 150 grand on the line.
Yeah, it's a bigger prize pool. Not 250 for the whole event, right?
Yeah,
not 250.
250 for the whole event, 150 for first, 50 for second, 15
Can you
for
imagine that this fucking event lasts a week and the grand final is on a Monday, has the same prize pool as like the first majors that we had?
Yeah, how ridiculous.
And some of these teams are like 46th in the world, and some of them got invited last minute because someone else said
pulled
like
out.
250K.
Heroic would have been the heavy favorites.
Yeah,
like that's the crazy thing about this event is VP losing already takes them out of the contention. Like it's a double LM bracket, they can still win the whole thing, and now they have to do it the hard way. But like before, it would have been a conversation. VP Complexity, okay, the bracket's kind of fucked for them. Let's see how this one pans out. EG, who even knows what's going on over there at the moment? Dignitas, yeah, they look good, but you wouldn't consider them like going to go super deep. Now
seems to be destined to going to Complexity now.
Sorry?
Seems just to be destined to be going to Complexity
sure.
now.
Yeah, if they can continue to convert, like I think VP probably run the gauntlet of the lower bracket with the competition available there, right? But it's like it's not an event that like everybody is in this for something different. Like if you're like a Harvu, a Fours, maybe even a Big. Like for this, you're like, okay, well, we want to have a pretty strong showing, or Dignitas, I guess, as well. Like you want to make
Xtrfy.
Yeah, but for Xtrfy, this is Europe. Like whatever they get, any wins Xtrfy get here are fantastic. They're not coming here expecting to win. I'll tell you that. As a team coming from a region like North America is now, same with team coming from Australia, Asia, South America, you're not coming expecting to win. Like you're coming wanting to win and going to do everything to win, but it's like, I think that you kind of just here for an experience tour, bro. You know,
but they were so hot in NA. That's the thing, and the way they lost in Blast, I think, was kind of a wake up call in some senses. Marky played okay, but other than that, it was very bleak. And then there was a post match interview with OC OC was asked by Banks, like, what's the main difference opping in Europe versus in NA? And OC was like straight face, said something like, in Europe, they actually flash you off angles. And I thought that was like super funny. Is because he's been destroying everyone in NA. So,
Yeah.
and I don't know. This is just like one match, so I'm not going to be saying that like that game against the Spirit defines them. And the Spirit is a pretty strong opponent to face as well. But it's a whole different ball game.
Sure. All right. Well, with FunSpark ULTI, you guys can check it out. You can see there we got the link up. The games are live every day at 2 and 5:30. It'd be interesting to see. I guess Complexity VP are the favorites in that one, but we'll keep our eyes on that one.
I'd say like big is a team that we can
They
assess
need a
maybe.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need like a final or something like that. Top 3, 3-4 series 1, some like good showings against weaker teams. Yeah, and MICHU with Evil Geniuses.
Yeah, they got to get out of jail free card because of that one. No matter what happens, they'll be like, yeah, MICHU's just joined. So for that one, it doesn't even matter. Like good results, people get overhyped. Bad results, they get let off the hook. So let's keep
That's
it.
actually true.
Let's look at this here, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get into this bit of a mid-season recap. As we mentioned at the top of the show, if you have a calendar, if you have a phone, you don't even need a fucking calendar anymore. You don't even need to listen to the radio to hear the weather anymore. You can just find it in the palm of your hand. Well, it'll tell you that today is the 19th of April. So we are chugging through the fucking year. Profit's important.
It
plays in.
Like you just came back from like 1956.
Sometimes
like,
I hope I did.
You don't even need a clock anymore.
Dude, we're all brainwashed by these.
You don't
little,
even buy
these
dirty
little,
magazines.
These
It's
little
on your
fucking
phone.
things. These things have fucked us, dude. These things have taken over our brains. They've taken over our lives. They've taken over everything. Fuck. It's all over, man. It's all over, man. All right.
That is a rant.
Can we change the red meter to like existential crisis meter? Like what's going on today?
Oh dear. Okay. Now
Aliens, phone, kids.
Man. All right. So this is what I want to talk about. The reason I said the date again is because you wouldn't know it, but we're already quickly getting like 2021. We're 4 months in, boys. Before we know it, it's going to be
practically over.
It's going to be Christmas, right? Like it's going to be
presents.
GG. Now, there's lots of things to talk about here. Now, people in the chat, instead of spamming nonsense about me, spam some actual good stuff about big things that happen in a year, like the biggest drama or who you think's the best player or, what you're like anything crazy that's happened. I want you guys in chat to spam it because we're going to speculate the same here. So let's start, right, by talking about in 2021, off the top of your head, boys, what is the biggest thing that stands out in a good way or a bad way, right? Not a play, but like a piece of news that we've got. What do you think is the biggest thing, one way or another? Is it positive news? Is it negative news? Because I think like team-wise, we'd all say Gambit are the breakout of the year, even though they've been on the incline. You think CIS Counter-Strike as a whole being so competitive, even though if you go back and you look at it, it makes sense in the scheme of things.
Right.
There's
an entry.
Well, Lucas has just made an entry. Lucas, you have a microphone.
Yeah, but I'm like scared to say anything.
You can say words.
I mean, this was the year that Thorin left Flashpoint.
Well, which is a pretty big deal because Thorin was doing a lot over there, right? And we don't know what's going to happen with Flashpoint now. I won't lie. I don't know. Yeah, I think Monte Cristo's is driving the ship over there, right? So I don't know into what regard, but I think if Duncan loses faith in something, then it's kind of telling of the work life over there that it's probably not going to go in a direction that he thought was good fast. But like that is a big thing that's happened this year because Flashpoint was the third contender. Which this is a good talking point, Lucas. You've actually set us up in a good point. We have ESL with the ESL Pro Tour. We have Blast with their circuit. I don't know what the official name for their circuit is. And then we had Flashpoint, right, with their franchise teams, which was meant to be bringing what would have been more of a North American focus because there's where a lot of those orgs were from, right? Even though they were European teams, that's kind of where the focus was in North America. Now the status quo, Prof and Striker, is a bit different, right? Like we don't have those teams anymore. Prof, have you put your hand up?
Actually did. Yes.
Nice. All right.
I found that. I wanted to say like kind of connected and not connected to that. I feel like this year we don't have an oversaturation problem.
Okay.
And that's something that didn't really get addressed by anyone, because you don't really see the things that don't exist anymore, right? You complain about the issues that are there, and when they go away, you just forget they were ever there. And I'd say this year, watching like tier 1 events, they're not too stacked. There's like decent breaks between them. There are like mid-tier, lower tier events to fill in the gaps. So if you want to watch like some decent CS, you can watch it. But if you're kind of sick of watching CS and you don't watch it for a week, you're not going to miss the most important things. And overall, it's kind of well balanced, or at least until now with the RMR events. We'll see how that pans out, because there's probably going to be some rejigging there. But overall, I'd say it's been pretty enjoyable to watch CS and to follow CS. It hasn't been overwhelming in any way.
Now, I guess this ties into, Lucas, bring this tweet up that I made the other day here. Now, this tweet I made, I'm going to read it just so you guys know that I'm not great with numbers and stuff. The tweet reads, probably scuffed a few numbers, but took a quick look at the amount of play days from start of 2021 until April 15 recorded on HLTV.org for the top teams. Then I went on to say, if you plan to use the figures, I'd definitely double check them. This was a very quick scan of the numbers. And then I further said in a follow-up tweet, keep in mind, this is just their official play days. This does not include media days, practice days, etc. 105 days from January 1st to April 15. Tournament break officially ended on the 17th of January. So that means tournaments could start back up on the 18th of January, which is a total period of time for available tier 1 competition days of 88. So if you have a look at this right here, just playing into what you were talking about there, Prof, I broke it down into months so people can see just that this was all the teams in the top 20 at the time I did this. And the amount of days that they played officials in a month, the total days, and then how that correlates to the maps, right? And Gambit are leading the charge, and they're also the best team in the world. So like there was nothing, there was no correlation with this. There was no purpose of this. I wasn't trying to say, hey, look how small amount of work these players do. The point is, this is the only tangible thing that we have, right? We can only see the performance of these players in the server on the days that they play officials. That we have no other way of officially measuring them. Like Prof, Striker, the other reporters around Counter-Strike, they don't get given backstage fucking passes to go into teams' team speaks and watch them practice and, you know, kind of get a vibe for how they do it. If the players in form, you know, we don't have scouts out there, you know, refreshing to see which teams are playing which and who's performing well. And then when we do, it's like, well, you can't really count prac results. The only thing that we have to look at here is the amount of matches that these guys have played, or the amount of days that they played. And the total for Gambit with 29, then you have 28 for Harv, who another team is on the rise at the moment, obviously not of Gambit level, but they're starting to go in that direction. The names with the most, I'll read them off the list, and you guys can tell me how you think about them, though, because after Gambit and Harvu, you know, VP, 21 days. You got 22 days for a team like Liquid, who are up in the top right now. NIP, a team who have been working pretty hard and are starting to see good results, 20 for them. But then you go on the other side of that, teams like Fnatic only have 13 days. Now, that's a symptom of their results. If you get knocked out of a tournament early, right, you're not going to play a lot of days, but you're also not playing in a lot of tournaments. And then to just fucking cream on top of this cake, this ties back into your tweet, Prof, because you were talking about the fact with the open circuits. So some of these guys are protected by being a Louvre agreement team or a Blast partner team or previously a Flashpoint team to be guaranteed to be in these events when the names like the Gambits, the Heroics, the Harbus, these guys who aren't there, they're grinding up and they're showing that you can be competitive in this environment. Like, what do we make of the scene right now? Because it almost means that the rankings, they're not power rankings. They're not who the best teams are as we feel right now. They're the best teams with the results that we know. So Counter-Strike at the moment, for me, because of how guarded some of these squads feel, it's hard to know who the best is. Like, I think right now, if you're a person and you think Astralis is still one of the best teams in the world, you're probably not watching the games, like, guys. Like, you're probably not watching Counter-Strike. So I don't know what to make of our scene right now. I don't think it's all doom and gloom like some people think it is. Like, I don't get that vibe. Like, guys, I don't have to tell you this, and like, I'm not a journalist. I don't investigate things and stuff, but I've been around Counter-Strike now for the majority of my life, like actually the majority of my life. And when like I read stuff about like, oh, North American Counter-Strike dying this and Valorant taking all the players this, like, I don't know if you guys are actually looking at the numbers and like you're understanding what kind of world that we're in right now, but I think it's a pretty fucking good one. We have more players than ever. we have sticker capsules in the fucking game. I was reading a tweet today. Some cunt was saying that like the iBuyPower holo or the Dignitas holo from whatever it is reaching all-time highs in terms. And this is like the skin economy of the game. We've got like in terms of the player base, it's huge. In terms of the amount of leagues and choice, we just said open qualifiers. And for people who are just like amateurs making tournaments with their friends trying to qualify for these big events, are oversaturated right now for some of these names. There's multiple big circuits for everybody to be involved in. Players, I'm telling you right now, a large portion of your favorite players are making $20,000 a month or more. Like what, but all we're doing, right? And I just feel there's so much like, okay, yeah, are some players in North America being investigated because they match fixed? Yeah, but like that's an incident that's there, right? Like, I don't know. I feel like right now, everyone's just painting the Counter-Strike community in such like a negative light that that's all that people are fucking banging on about. It's just negative shit. And I don't think that's the actual, I don't think that's the landscape. Is it as negative as...
You're just trying to protect your job, obviously.
Yeah.
Crying
Maybe I
for a
am.
dying game because you're go back to being a plumber if CS
Dude, I'm
dies.
definitely not doing that. I'll go work anything else before digging holes again.
I mean, that's obviously what some people will say. Yeah, you can say whatever. Obviously, in NA, the situation is as it is, not great. But at the same time, you pop on a Valorant stream of like their European competition, even with some of these like good teams, and it's not a lot of viewers. So it's literally at this point in Europe, there's nothing to really be afraid of, at least. And from what I know, the salaries for European teams and players also aren't that amazing, especially comparing to CS, which is more or less, as you said, consolidated at that kind of a level where it has been for the past few years.
It's going to go down now. Let me tell you that much.
And maybe some teams had like 40K before, or maybe some still have, based on like contracts from a year or two ago. Maybe that is going to go down, but it's not the end of the world. Maybe they won't buy I don't even know cars, like a very expensive car. They'll buy less expensive car, but still a good car. Put in whatever the fuck you want in those brackets.
They won't get the Tesla. They'll just get, a BMW M3.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's a good car. That probably was 10 years ago. I don't even know anymore. But like, I don't know. Maybe like, obviously for us, like being so, we would be Counter-Strike hardcore, right? Like I play other games for fun, right? But I don't follow other games. Maybe I'll occasionally tune into a Valorant stream. I like to see what it's up to. But and I'll occasionally play it too, because I think it's important to know what the competition is doing. Like I think
you got to know your enemy.
Exactly, right? And I think to see it like and to be able to go, okay, yeah, this is like this, and just to understand what the appeal is, it's important to be able to do that, right? And this is the first time that we've ever had a true competitor. Before, we've never had a competitor that wasn't part of the Counter-Strike franchise. Our competitors in the past were CS Source, right? So I don't know, like just reflecting on this year, it's just really been made to look like the sky is falling. And I don't know, like people in the community are always pitting things against each other. Like I'm reading like, well, this analyst is better than this analyst, or this event organizer is better than this. Like right now, all of you guys are getting everything for free that you consume. What is it that you pay for? Maybe a Faceit subscription because you want to play the premium quality thing and not have to play against fucking kids not trying.
Some skins, of course.
You're buying like what are we doing? What are we talking about right now? Like I know that I'm an entitled fucking muppet, but like the level of entitlement now that I'm seeing is hitting an all-time high. Like the companies that are pushing the boundaries and doing new things and, oh, this is shit. Like, how dare you make me watch an ad break screen, that it doesn't have content filling when I'm meant to be watching an ad break to help pay for the product that I like watching. Like,
yes, I'll shell.
No, but it's not like, I think it's like, let's be honest here. Blast pushing the level, like Blast are smart. Blast went, we can't do our live events, so let's pour all of our attention into having a better quality of content. And then ESL went, oh shit. Right? They've just made us look silly. We're going to have to catch up. So then ESL are caught up, which has helped elevate the bar, right? Flashpoint would have done the same. Unfortunately, they weren't able to pull off what they wanted to pull off. So now it's a position where it's just going to be Blast and ESL are the ones pushing each other, hopefully, right? But like, I don't know. I don't know. Like I've gone off. I've just a little bit confused by the whole thing.
I mean, overall, I'll just say that I really enjoyed watching CS this year. more so than like last year, especially when those it took some time to like get adjusted from LAN to online and like actually taking online super seriously, and then having bad formats and too many matches, and as like Pro League was a complete mess with like million games overlapping. But this year I feel like it's like everyone's making the most of it, and the formats are good, and it's good to watch. They're good games. Not every game is good, but like every event we had good finals as well. Every event we have some like breakout things, an underdog picking up some like a couple of upsets, then a new player having a good tournament. Yakindar is having like a great year, whatever. So I think it's just like it's fun to watch. Of course, I want lands back, and of course, I want to travel and I want to go to events, but it's not bad. It's not. I don't see why. I mean, I see why people would complain and have all these like doomsday apocalypse scenarios, but even if CS is 10 times smaller, it'll still go on and it'll be enough to feed me, I feel like. So I can't really I'm not worried. That's
Yeah,
it.
I don't know, Striker. Like when I hear people talking about the death of Counter-Strike, it just feels like a super ignorant thing, right? Like, do you think that we're heading down a path that we were not able to come back from? Because I get the concerns, right? I get the concerns of like I think we're course correcting as it is right now. I think player salaries, for example, are something which are not gonna like unless you're a Simple or a Zywoo, like these days, I'm not going to be forking out 20 grand for an MBK. I'm just going to be spending, 5 or 6 grand for the next FPL star. Like, why would I be spending money on these things when I don't have to anymore? There's so many players who are, and I taught like I've been trying to play like more pugs and stuff recently, and try and like with pros who I used to be friends with and stuff, like or used to play with, try and get and just to talk to them about the game in some environments and ask some questions, because I don't normally do that, right? Like I try to keep myself as disconnected from that because it's my job to kind of critique them. I don't want to ever get into a point where I'm, rooting for a team. I don't want that. Like, I don't want to be biased because like this guy told me, but the thing is they're like, it's harder than ever. Right. And that's the level of the game has gotten harder than ever. There are so many players now with the understanding. There are so many more tools, so many more facilities on how to learn. Like people are expressing knowledge, like Carrigan, Stiko, all these guys are doing videos. Alicia's doing content now. If you want to learn about
There's so much content.
yeah, it's endless now. So there's no point on wasting all this money that we once were to get a top tier guy. Like that's going to change.
Yeah.
So anyway, the question, Striker, that I was going to, do you think we are headed in a path with some of our stuff? Because take this back into what Prof's tweet was about the closed circuits. Do we think that we're going to continue to head in that direction and we're going to shoot ourselves in the foot to remove the fun storylines, the Gambit and the Heroics? Do we think that, we're ever in threat of that? Is it signs that we're going down a dark path?
I think as much as I know that like any or a tournament organizer would want to come out on top, and obviously there's some things that you have to do to kind of get there, right? Just to kind of like cut everybody else out if you want to be the one on top. But at the same time, like this, like the openness of our circuit, I think at least to a degree will never disappear.
Okay.
I think there's always going to be some sort of mechanic that will allow teams that aren't part of the partnered circuit or the partnered group to enter the circuits. So I think that part is never going to disappear. Maybe it's going to get limited to some level. Like we've obviously seen some of that in ESL Pro League, which was previously not partnered at all. I know like most of the teams could have been like entirely new, almost like not entirely new.
And there's only
like
a couple of teams that got relegated, right?
Yeah, exactly. Over a few seasons, like you could have, like a lot of the teams could have changed. This time, it's only half of them, right? So it's not as big. But I think that part is never going to disappear. So I think that's a good sign. Obviously, like if you want to have like the most open circuit as possible, you don't really want to see this happen. But I think the aspect is always going to be there to a certain degree. We see like these
the hybrid, right?
Yeah, we see these home sweet home events that are kind of like fostering some of this talent to get up to the next level. Sometimes they mesh up with like a lot of these bigger teams, as we saw in these playoffs and stuff like that. There's just like a lot of positive things that are happening right now. Teams are trying 6-man rosters. Like we're seeing some innovation in that aspect. Teams are trying to get a little bit more support staff and look into that aspect of the team of like how a team functions. Like there's like sure NA is kind of dead at this point. Like that's the bad part. Like we've pretty much lost the region at this point. Like we've only got a handful of teams that are actually could be legit. from North America.
Let's grab that one though, right? Let me stop you there. North America is dead at the moment. Let's dive into this because it's not something that I've truly like looked into heavily myself, right? So the orgs who we lost were Chaos and who? Who is the other org that we lost recently? I guess Cloud9.
Cloud9,
Genji.
Yeah, Envy. There's got to be one more who went with the Chaos. I thought there was one more that like was the same level of team who just kind of like disappeared. But either way, it's not really the point. But like in terms of it being like dead, those names that we talked about before, 100 Thieves, but they exist as Extremum now, right? Like if we're talking about North American Counter-Strike, well, 100 Thieves weren't North American,
right?
MIBR weren't North American, Furia aren't North American, right? Like where do we draw the line?
Not necessarily talking about. I'm just talking about what kind of impact it's going to have on the viewership from that region. The fact that they don't really have any. They're eventually not going to have any big teams in the circuit, or maybe not any, but
it might just be Liquid, for example.
Yeah, exactly. It just could be just Liquid and EG, and there's never like there could never be like a third team entering that that discussion, at least not until like the scene gets reinvigorated. Because at this point, like it's very difficult for a North American player to come up. Like the teams that he can join are literally just Liquid or EG,
and now EG doesn't look likely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So obviously, like that's gonna deter some of these players from trying to make it far. Like they would have to be like entire teams making their way to the top and stuff like that, or maybe like one of these players will have every now and again, like every half a year, like every year, will make it to a Liquid just because they need a change. You know, stuff like this. This is gonna trickle down where in a couple of years we're just legit. There's a high likelihood that we're just not gonna see more than like one NA team in competing at the top, right?
Yeah.
So that's like the only doom and gloom scenario that I see, that we're just going to lose an entire region. But I think some of the talent will still come through. Some of the talent, at least the one that we have now, I think that like the actual impact of this we're only going to see in like 5 years down the line, when like there's no grassroots scene to pick up from, right? Like people will just dwindle away from the game and just go into other games most likely.
Yeah, look, I think that a part of it was, this goes for almost Counter-Strike in the world, was artificially propped up by like certain orgs and stuff just because they were competitive in other games. So like it felt like a lot of the League of Legends teams felt like they should have a Counter-Strike team, for example. I don't know if you guys had that same kind of thought, right? But like that's obviously good to generate within the region, but it didn't generate a lot of success in the region, right? The success only came from EG and Liquid since 2019, right? When NRG were
before,
right? Yeah. So, like, realistically, the success purely from North America has only really been those two names.
Of course.
Well, yeah, okay, the Cloud9 before that, but it was almost like of a different era, right? But I look at that situation and I go, in terms of competitive nature, we still have two North American teams competitive. It's just how we're going to fill out the future ones. But at that point, I'm looking and I'm thinking, okay, well, now if there's not as many orgs, they have to fight for these kind of slots. Maybe we're going to get the hungry ones out of it. Like that's a positive spin on it. But what I wanted to do with what we were talking about with like these closed circuits and this, that, and the other, and where Counter-Strike is from the start of the year, Lucas, bring this one up. Yes, Lucas?
I mean, also talking about NA, you have the whole match fixing scandal going.
Yeah, we mentioned the FBI thing. That's not great. The Australian thing, we should probably check in with the Australian ESIC thing as well. But what I want to do, because I know this will get the viewers' attention, Lucas, bring up this one for everybody at home. And you guys can grab that one too. Now, this is the world rankings at the end of January, right? So this year, as I mentioned before, the player break, or sorry, not the player break, the tournament break, as it has been changed to now, ended I believe it's the tournament break, not the player break. So there's no tournaments running in that period of time, but players are not just off work, right? Like I guess their org says, yeah, you can have from this time to this time off, but play.
I wonder what's the point, man? Like, okay, we brought a new term.
I think that's what it's being changed to. I don't officially, I'm not the man to, but the tournament break ended on the 17th, which meant tournament started back on the 18th. This is a week later, right? Astralis were first. Now, obviously, this is with rankings. There's decay. We know how this all works. Astralis first, Vitality second, Navi third, Big fourth, Liquid fifth, Heroic sixth, OG seventh, G2 eighth, Furia ninth, and VP in there at 10th. Now, if I send you this one, Lucas, we can take a little bit of a look at how it looks today. And it has been updated. There was a bit of a delay. Peter made a tweet about it, some form of a bug. But if you just take a look at it today, right, Gambit are now the highest rated team in the world, right? They're number one. Then Astralis is still up there. Heroic have pushed higher. Navi is still in there. A lot of these names are still there, but it's like the Gambit one is the one that is, they came a long way since January, right? So when we're looking at these teams, we're looking at these names. Does anything else jump off, that has really changed a lot in the rankings from start of the year to now?
I mean, Vitality.
Okay, so they dropped down now to 8th, but I feel they're going to plummet a lot
13.
further than that, right? What am I looking at?
I think you're looking at
I
the
linked
last
the wrong
tweet.
one. Yeah, I linked the wrong one to you, Lucas.
Yeah, they dropped to 13
This
now,
one here,
Lucas. Which was to be expected, to be fair.
This is the January ranking that you.
I linked the January one, and then that I had went to an old link. Then the April one that came out today for the 19th. So
yeah, I'm just like taking it in because there hasn't been that many changes at the top. It's just pretty much just Vitality and G2 kind of swapping places.
With tarik had dropped to 20th now, for example.
Right. Yeah,
But
I mean that's because of the change.
What I wanted to do with us boys was kind of, and the chat can help too because they're always very vocal, is do a power ranking now of the top 10, right? Not with any of these events so far, like not like thinking, oh, what happened at IEM Global Challenge last year, like the teams as of right now.
Like if there is
if
there was an event tomorrow, how would we?
Who would we put as our top 10? Like what do we think it's going to look like, right? So I think Gambit is where we're all sitting. They don't have any. Of course, yeah. Okay, so then second. Like this is where it gets a bit tighter a discussion, but you'd almost have to say Heroic.
I think Heroic had legit based on the last 2 weeks essentially, it's just Heroic.
Okay, so first would be Gambit, second would be Heroic. Now we have another 8 spots to fill to get us to 10, right? Now this is where it starts. You can have now. You boys can jump in whatever you want, and we can debate it here because this is super open. I think the way that Astralis have lost some of their games recently, to have them in a conversation for like a top 3 spot right now is too difficult.
Even for a top 5, I wouldn't. Yeah, maybe bottom top 10, but I don't know.
So then who are we putting up there? Because I think like VP have looked really good in patches, but then also can look really quite...
For me, it's between VP and Spirit, honestly.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, but Spirit are currently 10th in the rankings. So
yeah, because they didn't play a lot. So that's what affected their ranking. But that's my opinion. So I don't know, you chime in with yours.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I think like Furia versus Spirit, like that'd be an interesting match to see who comes out on top there. I think Furia have been in good form, even with like the still integrating Junior. I don't think they've looked great, right? They wouldn't be my third team. I think like VP would be, I could agree on VP. Spirit, I don't know. I'm not 100% sold just yet.
So I'm just running through some of these events just to kind of refresh my memory on how these teams have done. Like.
So we have Gambit Heroic VP for our top 3.
Yeah. Then after that, it's like it gets really
you want to put Furia. Liquid is also there.
Liquid looked really rubbish against Dignitas stuff. We're going to be honest, right?
Like, but that was one match.
I think that's one match. I think I would put probably Liquid somewhere on the precipice of top 5.
Of the okay, yeah. I'll remind people. This is more of a power ranking, guys. This is like right now. Just to try and reiterate for people at home, the HLTV.org rankings is like a lot of events. There's Decay, there's fucking roster, there's all of that. We're just doing right now. All right. I don't know. I'd put Furia over Liquid. I don't know. Like
I don't mind it, honestly. They've been pretty consistent. I think they just haven't really done like enough to be in a conversation for titles, but I think they're like
their 16-2 Astralis win on Train was a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you want to go so now we have number 4 Furia. So number 5. I guess then we have Liquid. I still think Spirit deserves to be somewhere there. There's also Astralis that we can maybe put in the discussion, even though I wouldn't personally. If we're talking about the power ranking, like for me, Astralis is probably bottom top 10.
Dude, the thing is as well, like if I was honestly doing it, like if I was just like riffing, like OG somehow would sneak into my top 10 at the moment, which is just ridiculous.
I was thinking about it as well, but it's just like. Well, it's very recency bias, obviously, and kind of like, honeymoon period type stuff. But yeah, I kind of feel the same way.
We haven't said Na'Vi.
Yeah, I was just looking into what they did, like the latest, because I feel like they've kind of.
I know it's dysfunctional and the whole flamey thing. We don't know how it's going to look with bit full time, so that makes it a little bit harder. But I would say just with the simple electronic, that just seems like some pop out fucking analysis of doing right there. Because like the current team. What did they do? They lost their complexity 2-0 in EPL. That's the last time we saw them.
Yep.
You want to put Na'Vi top 5?
I don't know. The 2 teams they beat before that were Team 1 MIBR. They lost 2-1 to fucking Gambit, and they lost 2-0 to Furia. Like,
I'm not
these are Na'Vi's last 3. Point. Yeah, people at home, listen to this for a fucking second. The last 3 Na'Vi wins are Cloud9, who doesn't exist anymore, MIBR, and Team 1.
Yeah, that got them out of the groups.
That is absurd. Okay, so I don't know. Na'Vi have to be ballooning out here. Like, if we're gonna, this is the thing, guys. This is the reason I want to bring this up is because if we're looking at recent form, these teams only are having points because they've beaten shit teams in the events that they're already partnered with. Like,
Yeah.
Like, be honest with yourselves for a second here. Their form against the better names is not good. If we just look at the form against the good, it's not good. Like, yikes.
That's why I'm saying, like, Spirit is
Yeah, put
currently
Spirit in.
like, okay, you want a Spirit? Are you
Yeah,
okay with
I'm
I
that?
mean,
with Spirit.
fine. Sure.
Okay, so then we have Spirit.
It's because I don't have anybody else to put.
Yeah,
them.
but it feels like that though, doesn't it? It's
Yeah,
weird.
you
I think like from like the fifth spot down, like it could be like 5 teams.
And
Like
now we
there's
have
a discussion for G2 almost now, like somewhere like around that
Ooh.
level.
not for me. I mean, also like maybe bottom top 10, but I wouldn't put them over Liquid, for example, at the moment.
Well, I definitely put him way above Astralis right now.
And that's,
Really?
that's fair. I'd agree right now. But
I
if
think
you look at
G2, I think G2 have gotten a lot of flack just because of the topping change, but their results, like, of course, they've been like fairly inconsistent, but still they've taken down some like legit teams.
OG to, I guess if I was going to put OG in the top 10 and G2 beat them, you'd have to. They beat Liquid. They beat FaZe. That FaZe game, I don't know if we count. They lost to Ents. They beat Vitality. They beat NIP. Like NIP, we haven't mentioned either. NIP,
I think
I don't
NIP
know
are
about
doomed to
NIP.
like a top 10 forever, man, forever and ever.
All right, I guess we would have to pad out with the Astralises and Navis of the world. Like even if we're saying that we don't think they're like in great form right now, do we think, right? Because this is the way we're gonna have to look at this. Have we said Liquid?
I mean, we put them in 5 now.
No,
I
Spirit
don't
is
think
5.
we've used them yet. I'd put Liquid after Spirit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that.
I like that.
And
Then,
now
like,
we have these difficult. Now we have the Navi maybe
Navi,
creeping back in.
Astralis, G2,
Yeah, I'd literally go like something like
OG,
Navi, OG, G2.
Astralis, something like that.
Astralis would be the 11th, right?
There's okay.
No, that
I
would
have
be
to
number
check like
10.
complexity. Actually, I've kind of like forgotten what's happened with them over the year
Complexity beat Harvard
or like
today.
recently.
They lost to NIP. They beat VP. They beat Navi. They lost to Heroic. This was all during EPL. They beat Renegades. They lost to Big. They beat OG. They beat FPX. FPX had a stand-in. OG had a stand-in.
Complexity still seem to be in the same kind of spot that they've always been, like where they can always be a contender against like the best teams, but then they lose to somebody they shouldn't be losing to, and like it all kind of resets.
I'm happy to pad out the way you were saying there, Prof, with like the Navis, the G2s, the OGs. I think power ranking wise, like for right now,
Like this.
it's probably not a bad. Yeah, I think that's probably not a bad go. Like, which is wild. How can we show the viewers?
I'll put a presentation thing together.
Yeah, because like
Yeah, let's do that.
I think that this is one of those things, right? Because there's obviously a lot of changing that needs to happen. And while we get that written out by Prof, we can kind of keep the conversation going. With these closed events, or maybe not closed events, with the hybrid nature, certain teams are always going to, with just 1 or 2 wins against a team that they're probably seeded quite well against, are going to guarantee themselves points or guarantee themselves attendance in these events going forward, right? Which means they're almost protected by that. This online era opening everything up, you're seeing in the Snow Sweet Snows and these smaller events with these names, how much more competitive it can be. Obviously, when we're not in the arenas, right? We all know that land factor is one, but it's showing you just in terms of, who's working hard, who's has a good understanding of the game and all those things of who that we're looking at. And I don't know how this is all going to, shape on out in half a year's time when hopefully we're back on LAN. But it's just really difficult right now, I think, to put the finger on the pulse of who the best teams in the world are. It's been wild, right? I don't know. This has been a wild fucking ride. Lucas, did you get that link? Okay. That's all right. We'll get it there in a second. Don't you worry about that.
Yeah, I can send a screenshot if you want.
So yeah, do we think like obviously people, I saw you replied to a guy today, Prof, in a tweet, like talking about LAN teams, right? Like we've had this discussion to the end of time, so we're not going to go in that one there, but like how different do we think things are going to look? Because we're still 6 months away from LAN, right?
I don't think it's going to be that different overall, especially Like
Go
the
through the
biggest,
list here.
the biggest
Which one's
difference,
boot camp?
I think the biggest differences are going to be like coach influence in matches.
Sure.
And
That's a big
that
one.
maybe can help with some teams that have maybe poor communication, or one guy that isn't that good in like positioning himself or like reading the game and needs some like small instructions during the game. And we have no idea. That could literally be any team, maybe not Astralis probably, because they already proved with this lineup that they don't need that stuff. But any other team could have any of these issues, right? It could be Furia, for example. Maybe their communication sucks, and then Gary can help in that he does that. We have no fucking idea. And maybe some in-game leader, that's also a thing. We have a lot of these in-game leaders now that didn't used to be in-game leaders before. How much are the coaches helping there to kind of bridge that gap in during like not calling timeouts, just being able to talk in freeze time all the time, which they won't be able to do on LAN. These kinds of things I feel like would be the biggest differences. Maybe the audio thing, maybe all of these offensive plays, you won't be able to work off of them as much as you do online with, I don't know, just getting that, the step that you hear after you die. So even if you die, you get the info, they're going this way, they're going that way, these kinds of things. But I think it's super hard to say which of these teams are gonna suffer the most. And I don't think it's gonna be like all of the old boys just instantly coming back and being the best.
Sure.
Because most of them won't even be there the way that we're going anyway, right? Like RPK is out, Flamey is out, and that's the direction that by the time we're back, it's going to be half of the new players in these like old teams.
Sure.
Yeah. I mean, as much as I think that online and LAN is obviously there's a difference there, especially like for certain players, like there's even like a ping difference for a lot of these people and stuff like that. So obviously like that's going to come into play. But in general, I feel like the biggest part about online happening for such a long time now, for being around for like a year, it has made all of these teams switch their focus and just learn how to be consistent online, right? Just how to be in the same kind of place for every tournament and stuff like that. Previously, they only had these online tournaments like probably every half a year or something like that, and they probably didn't take them super seriously just because they had a LAN coming up like in 2 days or whatever, like after they play this or that match. So like I think the fact that people have switched focus and like learned how to be a bit more consistent online, or just at least to have the same pace and the same kind of focus, I think that makes me think that it's not going to be that big of a difference when we come back. I think it's going to be a transitional period for literally everybody, just because it's going to take some time to get used to these environments and stuff like that. And for some teams, it might be a bit more difficult for like I guess, I mean, maybe Gambit is the best one right now, but they still have quite a lot of LAN experience. So I don't think it's going to affect them super much. But like some of these teams.
Well, like honestly, traveling and feeling 100% in a hotel, a new city, a new time zone, that's a skill. If you master that one, let me know how you've done it. But there's a lot of those factors there that we're never going to be able to account for. And I worry that this is a chance for us to not have like a clean break, but it kind of feels like if we could have it like as inclusive as possible to all of the big names and really just throw it, because I feel like the way that we're going to measure all these teams is going to be so difficult to do. And that's going to happen no matter what, like no matter how this happens. So there's no easy way to do it, but all right. So
was that why you were asking about like what is the 16 team double elimination bracket? How many
32,
days?
Yeah, because I feel like there's so many good teams now, and like I think the top 30 on HLTV, or there's probably a lot of names you could tinker with there. There's probably a lot of names like the Gorillas team with Flusher, for example. The new North team that's being built. Like there's probably a lot of teams you could argue that you could fit in there and they might be more competitive than some of these names. Obviously, that's not what the rankings show. But
I mean, just get fucking 40 teams and get a proper Swiss system with like a lot of teams, right? So it's like
sure. There's if we're doing 32, why not? We'll just keep going. Like I'm with you. We made something big is good because it's so hard to measure all these teams right now. But
I think something like Swiss system is legit like done for like a big sample size where you can't seed people properly, so it's like the Swiss system essentially does it for you. That's how it's used in chess and stuff like that, where there's just so many players that you there's just no way that you're going to rank them properly, right? according to seeding. So they just play like semi-randomly, right, against one
Sifting for
another.
gold kind of thing.
Yeah, so like that's actually what Swiss is pretty much made for. We obviously kind of adapted it quite heavily towards counter-strike, where there's like a lot of seeding because it's kind of necessary, because we can actually rank teams considering how many fucking tournaments there are and stuff like that. But yeah, that's kind of what it's made for. It's probably better than like a double elimination, just because you get more of a chance.
That's another thing like that I think is interesting with the online era, because like everybody's able to play so much that we're constantly keeping our finger on the pulse, right? Like it's not like we see Astralis at the start of the month and then we see them. Oh, maybe it is. Like I guess it is with the amount of days that in that graphic that I have before. For some reason, it doesn't feel that way. Maybe that's because we just have so many good teams now. But I was going to say, like, it doesn't feel like we see Astralis at the start of the month, then we see them like at the start of the next month and go, yeah, you know, it's completely changed a lot. But I guess they've been on the same trajectory here. What else has been big this year? Obviously, the major announcement. I'm starting to get more and more positive about that happening. I don't know about you boys. Lots more vaccinations happening.
HLTV positive.
Yeah, that's a whole thing
That's
as well.
a throwback and a half. That was a term like 3 years ago at the League Major, I think.
Okay, well, like that, the major being announced shows that one or two things. Some people are positive that this is all going to work itself out. Like it's also a positive thing for the game. I think this year the major needs to have like a real positive focus. So everything leading up to it, because we need it. Like we truly need it, because the way that I think we should look at the majors is the celebration of our game, right? And we celebrate who the team is that's worked the hardest and got the best results of that event. And hopefully we have some really exciting Counter-Strike along that journey, right? And I'm hoping that we can get it off without a hitch. I'm hoping that there are no compromises. It's like these guys can't travel because of the COVID thing, so these guys are invited instead or whatever. Like we really don't want that stuff to happen. It's going to kind of be a good way for us as a community to go, okay, well, we're getting back on our way now. And that's what ties me into what I was saying before about all the doom and gloom. Like, boys, I look at I obviously we mainly focus on the tier 1 Counter-Strike, right? There's so many different levels to Counter-Strike, but obviously we've got the ESL circuit, we have the Blast circuit, and then we have the major circuit. Is there anything that I'm missing here in terms of the top tier Counter-Strike? Because I know that once upon a time, Epicenter would pop their head up and run events. Starladder would do a couple. We did have ECS. Now, whether or not you count them as Flashpoint, I don't know what the distinction is over there. We did have Flashpoint, but now it looks like the only thing they're running at the moment is the RMR event, which they're calling Flashpoint Season 3, I think.
Yep,
like
not Season 3, just 3.
Just Flashpoint.
Just 3. Okay. So
yeah,
so
I don't like that naming. I feel like it's confusing considering like
it's not a continuation. It's a standalone thing, right? It has its own merit.
I mean, it was done in the past with like ESL's RMR. Striker pointed that out when we were talking in Discord or something. Like IEM, CIS, New York, whatever.
That's very true.
But I think if you can pick a name, obviously that was kind of a replacement for an event that already existed. If you can pick a name, you probably should not like conflate these two things, because now you go on HLTV, you go like Flashpoint Season 1, Season 2, and then Season 3 and the related events has nothing to do with the first 2 seasons. So that's going to be kind of confusing, I feel like.
This is a question, right? Because like the way that I look at these bigger events now, like the Blast League and the ESL EPT stuff, they're like world leagues, right? Like I know that there's still feeder qualifiers from Oceania and South America and Asia. I know that there's feeder leagues, but they're like they look to me like global. Like that's where you want to compete. Like it's not like before, back in the day. Obviously, we had bigger communities around the world when this wasn't as easy to do, right? It wasn't easy to have a shitload of TOs spending millions of dollars a year to run events all over the place that they'd fly everybody around to contend all the time, right? Do we like the idea that it's like that, or would you guys prefer it more like a League of Legends model where the North American guys stay over in North America? Like, do we think that it would be worse for the game or better?
I mean, it would definitely be worse for the North American teams.
It'd be worse for the competition, I would say. Overall.
I agree. I think like as much as I'm actually kind of a league follower, but even though not like the entire scene, just like every now and again, I kind of like to watch certain teams and stuff like that. It's just like the lack of mixture between the regions. Like it literally just happens twice a year, essentially, like in the mid-season invitational and at the end of the year at the Worlds, and that's pretty much it. And it's just like you don't get to see the best teams. Like you don't get to know who the best team in the world is just because like you never see these teams face against each other. They just think they're best Korean and whatever Asian teams are the best because that's been the case for the last 7 years or whatever. So they're just like doing a lot of speculation on that while we actually get to see, right? So as much as I wouldn't mind having it the other way every now and again, I would really not like to have the entire season look that way.
Yeah. So it's like with this right now, everybody's being in Europe a lot more because of the whole COVID situation as well. I kind of feel like we were heading in this direction anyway. That's kind of where I was hoping to go with that. I didn't quite make the connection in my brain until this moment, Prof. But do you see that? Like,
what was the connection? I lost you there.
The fact that we're kind of doing everybody in Europe competing, we were always, like, in my mind, I felt like we were always going to go in this direction regardless of what was happening with COVID and how everything's like.
I mean, when
we might still have an IEM New York, right? But
when we had LANs, this was essentially wasn't in Europe, but was a
all over the
tournament
world.
Wherever, yeah. And when we had some bases for like Pro League and like Face It, whatever it was called, ECS. But other than that, everything was for everyone, essentially, right? So it's just a continuation of that, with it being like you can't really travel that much and you can't have big LAN events. So there's no point in traveling around the world. It's not like you're racing on different racetracks like in Formula One or something. You're playing the same shit. So just base it in Europe, right? I don't think it's a change. It's just how CS has been, like CSGO has been almost forever,
the entire time,
right?
Yeah, and that's why, like, when I get the whole thing of, oh, you know, so much time. Well, you were spending time away from home anyway, right? Like, if you were one of these big teams going up, let's not fucking head back down that path. Let's start from that.
We're gonna do like hot takes.
Yeah, let's do that. So far this year, the biggest things that happened is the major's been announced. 6-man rosters are a farce. That's one. Do you want to talk about that? Is it officially dead? Are we saying 6-man rosters are dead?
I'll just say the comment that I said before the show. All of these teams are like 6-man rosters are the future. Valve has to listen to us. This is going to be the future. And the first, like, Valve says, okay, you can't use 6-man rosters for these 3 tournaments this year, which are the 2 RMR events and the major. And everyone just says, yeah, fuck the 6-man rosters. I'm just going to bench this guy or sell him or whatever. I'm not interested in this anymore. So if this was the future and it helped so much to all the players, it made so much of a difference, why the fuck do you not keep the player for all of these other events that you want to use maybe that guy or when some of your players get burned out?
Especially when they all made like new graphics, like Blast have got like the sub-in graphic and shit. Like
HLTV made all of these changes for 6-man teams, and now it's all going to be useless. What are you saying, that all of these developers use like 5 minutes of their time to add like a button there, that it's like that was for nothing? I'm joking. They work very hard. Please don't get upset and implement things I want on the site, please.
This is a classic catch-22 scenario that we have here, right? Because let me make this. This is not a rant. I see the people, they want to rant. This is just a mild expression of my opinion in this catch-22 scenario that we have going on here. New things, right, need to be tried in the world of Counter-Strike for us to know if they work. If nobody is willing to try the new thing, Valve, who I guess are our authority figure because they decide what format the game is going to be played at, they are the final decision makers at our majors, which is where the bar is set. If other events like ESL, Starladder, Blast, Flashpoint, the Relog guys, I could go on. If these companies just go to that bar and they don't try things about the 6-man roster or coaches talking in freeze time like DreamHack had for a while there, or we don't try new maps, or we don't try new formats of the game, MR12, we don't look at new overtime adjustments with money. Blast did that recently. That's good. Yeah. If companies don't do these things, where do you guys think that Valve are going to get the data to know if something is a good idea or not? Because as much as you guys like to think that Valve are this office full of these guys with these massive brains, I'm sure they're very smart. But unfortunately, guys, as far as I'm aware, we haven't invented time travel yet. And they can't go forward in time and see how their decisions are going to impact anything. And none of us sitting here in our hindsight 2020 perfect fucking goggles going, oh, why don't they do this? Or why haven't they done that? Or why did they make this decision? We have absolutely no idea of how anything's going to pan out, nor does anybody in the whole entirety of the world, because this is the first time this shit is happening. So, like, with this and the 6-man roster, like Prof's saying, if teams don't try it, all because Valve are like, no, we want to keep it the way it is, right? Which is very Valve, right? Then how are they ever going to see that it is a good change? If every other tournament we're using it, besides the Valve one, right? And okay, sure, for that one we focus in, we get our 5, we go with whoever we got, then Valve eventually might come around to it. But how are they going to know it's good or not until they see it, right? And what did we do it for? What was it, about 4 or 5 months last year?
If anything, like I think like Valve, what they saw was Navi, Astralis,
and Vitality.
The 3 rich teams had 6-man rosters, and everyone else didn't have 6-man rosters, which essentially implies like, oh, only the teams that have more money can utilize
this. We
this.
don't want that.
Yeah, that is not what Valve essentially wants. So maybe if they went down that line and continued, and then more teams went on that 6-man roster hype train, and then everyone had 6-man rosters in the top 30 in the world, top 50 or whatever, then maybe Valve would be like, okay, this kind of makes sense. But this wasn't a very convincing case for
a short trial.
Yeah.
I have to say that's my view on it as well. It's just, I guess it was overhyped to a degree, just because legit we've only seen 3 teams out of the notable teams who actually got to try it in a reasonable way, right?
And we can also say like Vitality only really pulled it off. Like it only really made a difference with Vitality.
Yeah, exactly. Like that's the only team that did it super consistently. Like if you think about Navi, they didn't even do it that much. Like they legit did it on one map. Then Astralis literally only did it when they didn't have 2 players available consistently. Then Bubsky was out for the vast majority of their games, right? And pretty much every other map other than Nuke towards the end of it. So it's pretty much just one team that actually gave it a fair shot and had a profit from it. Yeah. So it's just we just haven't seen it enough, right?
Yeah.
To make any sort of grand claims about how this is the future and stuff.
I like the idea I like the idea of the academy roster where they can nurture the talent and then just change a player out or use them as a sub if they need to. I think that is the best way to go about it, and still something only for the richer clubs, right? Or the richer teams. But I think that's the direction that hopefully it goes, because I think that's a way to keep salaries reasonable, but to also keep good players coming through. And hopefully keep a higher level of counter-strike. Now let's do these hot takes, then we'll do our parry match matchmaker, and then we'll fuck her off, because obviously, as usual, we're running over time.
There's also some news that's coming.
No, we knew that. Meantime. We knew that Zephyr and Floppy were going. We fucking knew it. We already spoke about it. Enough. They're both gone. Have fun in Valorant, boys. Avidazen. All right. That's the time they get on this one. Hot takes.
One big negative part from that is like Floppy used to like come in the chat very often, so we lost essentially one viewer. So rest in peace, one viewer on our show.
Well,
maybe he's still gonna come. You don't know.
You never know. Maybe he'll be a Counter-Strike fan. Who knows? All right, hot takes. Prof, you got anything? I got some.
Obvious Astralis roster change before the summer break.
All right, pick a player or pick a bucket of players. An established player, an up-and-comer, someone we've never heard of, someone from the Astralis talent roster. What are we thinking, Prof?
All of that. I don't know. I think SSI coming back makes sense.
Okay.
Probably going to be available pretty soon. I also think like the Glaive thing, I hate speculating on like private life matters, but I feel like that could also happen.
Come on, dude. How old is Glaive? 25. Let me.
No, I don't think like permanently. Maybe just like
temporary. But wasn't the pregnancy only just announced like a couple months ago?
That is true.
Now, I didn't pay much attention in school, but I'm pretty sure it takes 9 months in the oven.
But it probably wasn't announced like the same day.
No, you normally. This is the thing. You have to wait. You normally wait until. Is it after the first trimester or the second trimester? I don't know what the fucking terms mean. I've just seen him on rom-coms.
Let me tell you that.
But it's definitely at some point most people wait because
Glaive is pregnant. They say in chat.
But some people wait, right? Because they don't want to say this is. I don't know. I've never look. But some people wait until a certain point in the pregnancy before they tell people because of complications. So I don't know. Yeah. I have no idea how far along this is. But I get what you're saying.
Like his individual showings were not that great.
You reckon that's because he's having a kid?
No. But maybe it's just like
that's
his focus.
Pregnancy right there.
Maybe his focus just isn't there. I don't know. There could be something.
The baby room and shit. Like,
look, I know they've made a lot of money already, but I'm just going to say the guy lives in Denmark and he's only 25 years of age.
Yeah.
And I read some dumb stat a couple of years ago that in America, and people are going to call me out for this. I don't know. I'm not citing it, but I read some dumb stat that was saying it's like it costs $1 million to get a kid. Maybe it was Australia to get a kid from birth until 18 years of age. Maybe it probably must have been Australia. I was reading that article. So he's probably going to need to win a couple more events just to get him through. Just a couple. Lucas is shaking his head. Maybe he's got a couple safe investment. He only won 4 majors, Lucas. You know, when he wins 6,
I mean,
then he can
on
go.
esports earnings, I think they're around $1 million. The Astralis guys,
Give me
but
1 sec.
From
that's
prize
like
money.
minus 70% because of
Glaive, with
finish.
Glaive, Liquipedia says 1.8.
Jesus fucking Christ, that's amazing.
I mean, you have to realize they've won a lot of events apart from the majors, man.
Okay.
Yeah, that's true. They have won a lot of
I mean,
events.
they fucking won the Instant Grand Slam.
Still need more than $1 million.
Yeah.
Anyway, where are the hot takes? Do you think it's going to be S attack?
So yeah, it could be that, or maybe there will just like fumble something, or maybe there's going to be like a bigger change overall with the team. But something is definitely.
What about an
up for-
Astralis org change, like the team?
That's also possible.
We've always heard, we've always sniffed it around. There's always
There's
a
always some
slight
talk
scent.
about that, like signing new contracts, whatever stuff is happening. So I don't know. Maybe that could also be a thing. That could also be in the back of these like back and forth between the team and the org. If there's some bad blood,
There's
not
always
like
the
bad
back.
blood, but if you're negotiating a salary contract, there's always going to be some back and forth, and that's not going to be smooth because you're essentially on the other sides of the table. Right?
Yeah. All right, Strike, you got any hot takes?
I'm super like I have no idea where to go with
I'm
this.
thinking like a roster change, a map change after this next major.
Oh, I like that.
I think it's too late for them to do it now. I would have said if they had done it like pretty much immediately after the announcement, I would have expected it. Yeah.
It's never too late for Valve, I think.
You reckon?
I think like literally after this RMR, they could change it.
Okay. Well, I
think it's not going to happen now that the armor. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's definitely
What are you speculating though? Because you have to think something's coming, right? And it has to be something that Valve have like at least kind of tested. That's why I would say ancient.
It's could be. I'm not saying it is going to happen, but it could happen. I don't think it. Just because there isn't a map that's that good. I don't think ancient, just because of the colors and everything, is gonna fit into. I don't know. You played it more. You tell me.
I play a shitload of ancient. I played way too much ancient.
Is it a good map?
It needs some heavy updates. Like a few of the choke points are a bit tight. I
So
think
perfect to get into the map pool according to Valve. I think.
Yeah, probably. Like I think it needs a rework or two, but like I think that it has the layout of the map has merit. But it
there's always cash that could be brought back. So
yeah, I don't think that's going to come back.
I'm not saying that that it's a good idea. I
think
also don't like it, but
are going to give money to a Valorant developer?
There you go.
Yeah, that is true.
Like,
it's not even about that. I think cash at the point that counte-strike is right now, with the utility usage that people like, the way they use utility, I think it's just too small of a map. And on CT side, it's so fucking annoying to play that I think it's not good for Pro CS.
There's Cobble.
We keep talking about Cobble. Have you guys played the current version of Cobble?
I don't think I've ever played it.
Visually updated. Cobble looks so
it looks dated. Yeah, you're right. And the new version is trashed here. Like the new version. You know what? With Counter-Strike now, you may as well go back to the very first version and rework that one, the CS:GO one, and rework that one to make it, because the one that they've come up with now, it feels like they've just like neutered the map. The things that were fun about the map they've taken away. But yeah, I don't know. Like map pools, I don't think there's going to be any other like big rule changes. Like I don't think, like we've already seen what they've done with coaching this year. I don't know. Do we think? Yeah.
What about like
Scandals.
year-long? Not even a scandal, but like new top 1 player in the world. Is it possible
this year?
Yeah. Where do you think that is gonna go? We talked about
would have to drop off hugely, right?
We talked about Zaiwu, like his stats for the first couple of months are the same as last year for the first couple of months.
Yeah.
So maybe we can't take too much from that. Simple has been on simple level.
I think there'll be like 5 CIS players in the top 20 this year if we keep going at this rate.
Probably
at least.
More.
Yeah,
more.
That was like a conservative.
5 in the top 10 or the top 20? What did you say?
Oh, like right now, if we were to do it right now, it would make up at least 5 of the top 10. But
Yeah.
like by end of the year, I don't know. That's why I was being a bit conservative by saying 5 in the top 20. That's still a lot of players.
Yeah.
Do you
No,
think?
but I mean,
like,
if we
there
if we
is-
have 4 teams in the top 10, like if they're all gonna keep
That's true.
around this
Maybe more
level,
than
like they're
5.
gonna have more players in the top.
is
10.
there even a chance for Shiro to displace like Zaiwu and Simple this year? I think that's the question.
I
Or
don't
not
see why
Shiro,
not.
but anyone else.
It'd be either be Axel or Shiro.
I mean,
it'd have to be one of those two.
It could be Yakinder.
Yeah,
for all
Yakinder.
we know. Yeah.
I mean, right now he's
I
like
don't
the
think Yakinder
past
can.
couple matches.
I don't think Yakinder can. Like, I just think being the nature of being a hard entry, he's never
Yeah.
going to, like, he'll have a game where he drops 35 and blows us all away. But then he's going to have that game, dude, with that rough timing, where he only gets 7 or 8, and that's going to happen. Those games,
To be
eventually
fair, like
happen.
those things happen to him way less than any other entry. So,
Yeah, but that's why I said he's going to have the game where he drops 35 when most of the entries are getting fucking 22 or something. Like, he's a beast, but I don't know. That's not like, I think it either is Shiro or Axel, but Axel would have to go. I don't know. Axel's fucking sick.
Yeah.
I don't think they would. I don't think Simple's getting. Well, he's been dethroned the last 2 years. I don't know if those two are going to get knocked off that perch, but it's still a long year,
but
right?
Simple only got dethroned because somebody else was actually on his level that was like still very much world class, right? Legit,
True.
like top 1 elite level. So
True. All right. What else we got here in terms of hot takes? Major.
trying to think about
there
like a different angle.
Any controversies coming? Last year we had stream sniping.
Coach Bug.
Coach Bug. We've had the FBI involved issue. I did say we're checking with that E6 stuff from Oz. Maybe we do that next week.
Yeah, we still don't have like a
Official
complete
statement,
list
right?
or whatever is going on. But it's moving in a good direction, I'd say.
All right. Well, we can wait till we get a couple more bits of info out of that.
I kind of, for some reason, I know this is like super recency bias, but in terms of teams, I like OG for like a big rise.
The thing is, I think top 5 is going to be really hard to crack, just considering the names who are there at the moment.
Yeah.
But this OG is, for me, like, I think that they're mainstay top 10 contenders.
I agree with you. Even what you were saying earlier about like these 2 players seemed looking like fit for this team entirely. So it's just, I just like this change so much.
All right. Fuck it. If we got nothing else, let's jump into this parry match situation, shall we?
Yeah, let's do the playtime.
Lucas, let's go. Hello. There was a question about the tech pauses I just saw in chat. So let's talk about that. There was a lot of tech pauses at Blast, but let me just put it this way. Would you rather the 2 teams fix the issues and play so that everything's fair for everybody? Yes. Now, if we're talking about the OG situation, was that against the G2 game? Oh, yeah. We didn't have that one in the list. All right, let's do the matchmaker, and then we'll do that final thing.
Okay.
All right. What's the go with the matchmaker here today, boys?
It's super dumb.
Super dumb. That's my favorite kind. All right. I've got the link to have a look. All right. So, for everybody playing at home, this is one of our sponsors segments on the show. And this is the Parry Match Matchmaker, where we have 5 options and we have to tie them to a description. Now, here is the list. Solo
This
QCS.
is for you, obviously, SPUNJ.
Oh, okay. Solo QCS, reading comments, RNG vs Titan VOD, Danger Zone, Banana Bread. Okay, it is tailored to me. Never mind. Addicted to, avoid, once a week, once a day, caution advised. Oh, shit.
There
I
we
like
go.
this a lot, man.
Oh.
We're
So,
starting.
If we start with solo queue, at the moment, I'm doing it once a day. So that one definitely fits. Like
Okay.
as
Do you
quite
have,
a...
like, the
I don't
clicker?
have the clicker. Luke, do I have it? Oh, you sent it there. All right, sorry, dude. I'm blind. Solo queue. Once a day. I'm doing that once a day. Reading comments.
Like this is like online on Twitter, Reddit, and stuff like that.
I want to say you should avoid it.
But you're addicted
But
to
you're
it.
addicted to it.
But I'm addicted to it, but caution is advised. So
Okay.
You
it's
can
one of the
click multiple, I think.
all right. Well, there we go. It fits all those bills. The RNG vs Titan VOD. You know what I show people, right? Like who don't know what I do? I show people that video MICHU made of like the road to Katowice, right? Where I'm yelling like a fucking clown. That one right there, definitely not once a week, once a day, anything like that. And I'm not addicted to it. But let's go once a day. Surely it's a reference in my life once a day. Danger Zone. Ooh. I've got a bit of a... I haven't been playing a lot of Danger Zone at the moment. So... Let's go with once a week. And then banana bread. I think I'm starting to put on some weight, so we'll avoid the banana bread for now. But that's how we got there.
I just bought like all the ingredients to make one, man. I was going to do it today, but like because of the show, I would have to do it now.
What are the ingredients? Like bananas, flour, sugar.
Yeah, I forget. I made
there's like a vanilla. There's
times.
like a vanilla thing, and
okay, yeah,
vanilla
like,
essence.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Well, this was quite personalized, wasn't it? Looks like a strand of DNA going on there as well. All right. So let's quickly talk about this blast situation that happened with the OG versus G2 game. Does anybody have like a clear synopsis of it, or should I do a bad job of it?
I don't know exactly what happens.
Okay, I'm gonna do a bad job of it.
Go ahead.
And someone can correct me in chat. So as far as I'm aware, what happened in the game was there was Jax disconnected from the game, whether he timed out, whether his PC crashed, whatever. I just know that he disconnected. I don't know what happened exactly. And it was a really important round. That round was probably worth like 2 or 3 rounds, really. It was a swing round in the game. And there was like, I think it was like the round with the close mid stack? Either way, Jax dropped. They typed it before any damage was done. The round they played on, which is what I think I've preached multiple times, saying play to the whistle, like until the admin calls it. The round played out. Then I think we had like a 50-minute pause where they were trying to work out how to fix the situation. Now, to me, it would have been okay. So the round played out, like they called stop. The game wasn't stopped, but we can clearly see going back and watching the demo or watching the VOD that he timed out before no damage was done. If that's the rule, to me, it should have been okay. Yeah, guys, look, that was the round, but we are going to replay it because this is by the rule, black and white. 3 minutes, bang, back in the server, ad break, done. Instead, that isn't what happened. And I think this statement came out from Blast saying that they, that in the future, they're going to try and make these decisions as quick as possible. I think that's pretty much the gist of the story right there. I don't think there's too much else to it. But I think the fact that it took 50 minutes is the part that is the problem.
I mean, there had to have been something contentious there. Just something that had to be contended.
Yeah, they said that they talked to like both teams to get their like side of the how everything went, right? So all of the details were correct, so they knew like when the pause was called or whatever. But it's
this is
just
something that you can see in a demo, though.
Yeah,
like the typing in chat, like as soon as .stop was called, right? Like because every system, every company has their own system. Like it's either a dot or an exclamation point, or you use the fucking drop down menu. Like everybody has their own. So as a player, like if you forget, it's probably up to the coach to know in that situation on how to deal with those scenarios. But like I said, playing if the game wasn't stopped by the other team, because I think it happened at like 1 minute 10. Like it's pretty mid rounds, right?
To be honest,
isn't there also that like the other rule about the time as well? And some, at least in ESL, I think there's like unless it happens post like 1 minute or something like that. I'm trying to remember what the exact ruling is. I actually didn't check this situation entirely, so I don't know what exactly happened. But I mean, in general, in these situations, like as long as you have a rule book, like you say, like if it's black and white, whether it's by time or whether it's by damage, like you just look at what actually happened and you act accordingly, right? There shouldn't be anything contentious there as long as that's in the rule book, right? You shouldn't even include the teams there just because that creates drama, right? That just creates opinions, and you don't want to do that. You just want to deal with things pretty much by the book in a lot of these cases, just to avoid things like Furia might be. Was it Furia MIBR?
Furia MIBR, there was a big problem with that
happened
one.
a while back. Like it's legitimately the same exact argument. Like you don't want to include the teams in a lot of these cases unless the other team just goes, yeah, okay, just give them the replay. We did 1 damage, like that didn't make any difference, right? Just give them the replay, whatever. We don't care.
Yeah.
Then okay, fine, just do the replay.
Yeah.
But like unless they step up themselves and like are okay with giving the other team the whatever the advantage, then it doesn't matter. Then you should just go by the book.
I think I think for from a viewer standpoint, they took too long to make the decision, and even for the team standpoint. And I think with what you're saying there, you muddy the water in terms of now people are going to be invested. They're like, you know, if the admin just comes in by the rule book, this is the decision that's being made. If you want to appeal it, you can appeal it after the game or whatever, but let's get back on with things, because this isn't one of those scenarios like in the past where the matchmaker hasn't had to work and we've had to fucking sit there and, you know, redo all the kills and deaths and who had what nades and who killed who. Well, it's not that bullshit. It's just too many cooks, right? And unfortunately, this is kind of what happens when we treat everybody like mates and we don't have that authority figure who's strong enough. But Blast normally don't make the same mistake more than once, you know. So I assume that this will be fixed going forward. And you know, it's done now. It sucks because OG were looking good, but it was their breakout event, and if you lose in that way, I think it's probably easier to shrug it off because of that, right? Like that's kind of.
They looked pretty.
They looked tilted
down. Yeah, after the game. But yeah, you can't allow these things to get into your head. I always remember the story of the infamous video of E-frag's cheque burning, if you remember that. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but you know the Bulgarian E-frag team.
Yeah.
Victor Bubble and those guys, they were playing like I think it was ESL South European Championship, and was I don't know which country it was. It wasn't in Bulgaria, but Bulgarians were running the event. And essentially there was some like decision in the final that didn't go their way about like a crash or something. They were like so upset and they finished second. And essentially they were like, this is bullshit. The admins are against us, even though the admins are Bulgarians and the other teams like Hungarians or something. And yeah, they were upset and they were leaving the event, and then they stopped somewhere on the side of like a highway. And they started burning the cheque, and there's a YouTube video of this. I don't think it's on YouTube
burning
anymore.
A cheque.
Like
so they have
the
like
big thing, the big
cheque.
board
Yeah,
thing that you
okay.
get, like the check.
And they're trying to burn it, but it doesn't really work because it's like super thick and it doesn't burn. And then they started like jumping on it, and it's just like one of these things when you get
I've missed
tilted.
this.
This is like a very popular thing amongst me and everyone that's my friend. I think. I literally showed it probably to my mom because it's so fucking funny. It's literally the fact that they can't burn the cheque. They attempt to, but it just won't burn, and then they just like start
the
like
humor.
Like kicking it and shit.
Can we just play this to end this, man? This is so funny.
Probably is it there?
Yeah, I found it.
This is essentially like you can't allow this to happen to you.
All right, what we'll do is we'll play this out when we close down the show. Lucas, are you able to do that? That's a yes. That's a begrudging yes, ladies and gentlemen. So we'll play this out when we close it down. I think we're there, boys. We got anything else we want to talk about? I didn't check the viewer questions. I'm sorry. Was there anything good?
Nothing like super interesting. And we went super long, so
yeah, it's a long one today. That's all right. Shows we got a lot to talk about. All right. Well, fuck it. Let's close it down. I don't think we have a show next week, right, Lucas? You're busy.
Yes, I am busy for actually 2 weeks, but I don't think I said that. Only next week.
So we don't have a show next week.
Next week, what are we having? Dust 2 DK, amazing TV televised finals of the best Danish teams.
Yes.
There we go.
Okay. Well, that's exciting. So everybody tune in for that. But we're not back the next week, either Lucas, or are we?
We might be, we might not be.
All right. Well, our future's up in the air, everybody's, and I hope that yours isn't. Now, remember, head over to anchor.fm/HLTV for all the audio-only options. We'll let you know when the next show is at HLTV Confirmed on Twitter. Yeah, you can find out all that good stuff, all the information that you need to know. We'll keep you up to date. Thank you again to Xtrfy and Parimatch for supporting the show. And to sign on out, Lucas is going to play you the ceremonious cheque burning. I believe it is. So enjoy and good night.
I'll play it at the end.
This is the end.
No, after all the ads.
Oh, you're going to have to hang around then, guys. I'm sorry that you're being honey dick by this, but I hope that you enjoy it. Goodbye.
Add some fun to your space with Xtrfy, designed in Sweden with focus on quality products built on experience. You're looking at Project 4, their 4th generation of products with super cool colorways to stand out, with matching sets to satisfy with a solid B4 bungee, lightweight ergonomic M4 mouse, the K4 keyboard is fantastic, all of which are performance focused, and finish it off with colorful GP4 mouse mats that are bold in design and smooth on the surface. The retro theme in particular has got the feels. Complete your setup with Xtrfy. No regrets guaranteed.
Fist bumps go to the teammates.
I wanna see you falling fast. Win the round. Win the game.
Parry Match, your esports teammate.